They laughed at him for being a trash-tier farmer, and he accidentally stole the soul of a legendary necromancer. While other players are dying in dungeons, he's treating the undead legion like free labor. Need to clear a forest. Summon the zombies. Need to harvest crops. Call the skeletons. He grows magical food to buff his minions, creating the most loyal, terrifying family in the world. The elites are scared of the Demon Lord, but the Demon Lord is scared of him. In Fangwan City, the class awakening ceremony was about to commence. A young man stepped down from a carriage, thanking Uncle Jiang before watching him drive off. Looking around, he thought that, just as expected for the annual awakening test, the place was incredibly lively. Within the barrier, humans underwent their profession awakening test the moment they reached adulthood. The professions varied greatly, as did their rarity levels, ranging from N rank, R rank, SR rank, and SSR rank, all the way up to the mythical Ur rank. The rarer the class, the stronger the combat power. Anyone who awakened a powerful class was guaranteed entry into a top-tier academy. All around him, young hopefuls who had come for their awakening were praying to legacy class holders for blessings, desperate for a better outcome than usual. Nearby, one guy was loudly begging the Great Master Berserker to bless him with an S-rank class. Another urged the line to move faster since it was almost his turn, while someone else sincerely prayed to the Great Heavenly Maiden, a figure she had admired since childhood, to help her become a noble legacy class holder. A different guy scoffed, commenting that some people were just daydreaming in broad daylight. Hearing all the chatter, the boy from the carriage got curious and asked a nearby teen what the buzz was about. The teen explained that rumors were swirling. A new legacy class holder was expected to appear during this year's test. Since there were still 4 vacant legacy class slots, everyone was naturally praying as hard as they could. The carriage boy mused that everyone seemed unusually eager to improve this year, which meant business should be booming for him. Just then, a signal sounded, and an announcer declared the start of the test. Results were read out one after another. Lin, rank class, level 10, 13 mana points. Shaw, N rank class, level 8, 8 mana points. G5, F rank class, level 34, 55 mana points. When G5 was admitted, someone nearby remarked with envy, wishing they had 55 mana points too. Seizing the moment, the young man from the carriage pulled an item from his bag and casually asked, "Hey, would you like a tomato that can increase your mana? A tomato that instantly increased mana?" That caught everyone's attention immediately. He explained that he was a spirit plant doctor and that this was a superior variety he had carefully cultivated. Each tomato, he pitched, increases a person's mana by 5% for 5 minutes. And they're only 5 gold coins each. He didn't stop there. He mentioned he also had hunger sweet potatoes that kept a person full for an entire day, slimming cucumbers that burned fat, and power potatoes that boosted attack power by 10%. The crowd looked doubtful, whispering that it sounded like some kind of scam, but he reiterated that his produce could genuinely increase mana and even help with weight loss. Since they were all sick of eating dry energy bars every single day, they eventually decided that trying something new wouldn't hurt. "It's first come, first served," he announced. "Limited stock. Once it's sold out, that's it. The first customer even gets a free sample." The guy who stepped up first was only half convinced, examining the tomato skeptically. But the moment he took a bite, he felt an instant surge of energy. "My mana, it really increased," he exclaimed. "And my body feels lighter." Someone else rushed over, wondering if his eyes were deceiving him. He recognized the vegetables. "These are spirit crops developed by the Extraordinary Academy's Agri-Science Institute. They're supposedly supplied only to S-rank students." The boy smiled. "This is a special event for the testing assembly. After all, everyone here has the potential to become a student of the Academy in the future." The man immediately slapped his money down. "Wrap up the whole stock for me." The others were not pleased, arguing that they had been there first. Now that they had witnessed the effects firsthand, the demand was instant. As he sold his goods, the boy thought to himself that although he only had a farmer-type class, ever since reaching max level, the vegetables and fruits he grew somehow gained beneficial buffs. He admitted inwardly that he used a few marketing tricks, but the effects of his produce were the real deal. Later, in front of a certain shop, another man appeared while the boy was packing up. The man listed off the items he had brought: chestnuts and pumpkin seeds for 5 gold, flour and rhinoceros dung for 7 gold, sugar for making wine for 10 gold, along with mana and energy potions. The total came to 257 gold coins. The boy handed him 10 gold coins for his trouble. He noted that he still didn't have enough money to buy high-grade fertilizer to improve the fields. "Brother Lin Fong," the man said, thanking him. "If these plants are so useful, why don't you simply grow more of them?" "It's not as simple as it looks," Lin Fong replied. "It's a real pity," the man commented. "Someone as talented as you since childhood ending up like this." Lin Fong told the man to hurry home since Auntie Xiao was waiting for him. After watching him leave, he couldn't help but reflect. Despite being called a genius since he was a kid, he had only awakened an N-rank farmer class. He joked inwardly that when he went to burn joss paper for his archdruid father, the man might just jump out of his coffin in rage. Maybe it really was a case of opposites canceling each other out. A herbalist mother and an archdruid father somehow produced a farmer. Still, when he thought about it carefully, he felt pretty satisfied with his peaceful life. He didn't have to go to the battlefield and lose his life like his father. And he wouldn't make his mother worry. Even if it was only for her sake, he had to manage their family farm properly. As he continued walking, he suddenly wondered why it felt like rain on a clear day. Before he could react, someone came crashing down right in front of him. Lin Fong froze. Did the city wall collapse? Did the demon clan break in? A moment later, the fallen man shakily got back up and made a shocking announcement. The legacy class holder, Necromancer Haizang, had defected and intended to hand over his class legacy to the demon clan. "We need to report this immediately," someone nearby shouted. But before anything else could happen, a huge clock materialized behind the man. Lin Fong stared, completely stunned, wondering what on earth was happening and whether handing a class legacy to the demon clan was even possible. A surge of energy suddenly swept across the entire area. "You idiot!" a voice snapped at him. "Why aren't you running? Are you eager to die?" The speaker continued. "If I hadn't been injured by forbidden magic, I would have escaped the city long ago. Once I hand my class legacy to the demon clan, I will gain an immortal body. And since I've stalled for this long, the academy has probably already noticed." Lin Fong quietly tried to sneak away, thinking he had clearly walked right into a murder scene and needed to vanish before the man realized he was there. But he was too slow. The man caught sight of him. "Who said you were allowed to leave?" He mentioned that the person he killed earlier had been Dean Yu of the Extraordinary Academy, calling it a pitiful death. Then he glared at Lin Fong. "I'll use your blood and bones as a sacrifice in his memory." Lin Fong realized he couldn't break free at all. The terrifying man had him completely trapped. He tried to force himself to remain calm, desperately searching his mind for anything he could use to drive this guy away. Suddenly, Lin Fong noticed a derived skill under his maxed-out farm tool mastery, farm tool summoning. While taking out his tool, he warned, "Sacrifices are something a person should handle themselves. Otherwise, they end up in the 18th level of hell." The man was stunned. He couldn't believe a mere farmer class had managed to injure him. "This is it," Lin Fong muttered. In the next moment, a powerful burst of energy erupted from his body, sending the enemy flying. But the surrounding energy didn't settle. It kept surging higher and higher. The enemy cursed, recognizing it as the marking formation of a demon array dancer. "Since things have come to this," he snarled, "I'll take over your body and escape." His entire soul suddenly plunged straight into Lin Fong. Inside his mind, the voice commented, "Although the farmer class is the lowest rank, your innate talent isn't bad. Consider yourself lucky to become my vessel. I have trained diligently every single day since childhood." Lin Fong replied coldly. "If a demon wants my body, he'll have to earn it." The demon dismissed him. "Low rank is still low rank. My power is something you could never reach." Lin Fong thought that luck clearly wasn't on his side this time. "If that's the case, we might as well go out together." He prepared to strike himself with the tool. The voice screamed, "What are you doing? Loving this recap? Give us a thumbs up and subscribe to join the community. Your support is what motivates us to make more." But Lin Fong insisted that even if they both perished, he wouldn't hand over his body. He only hoped that if he died, he wouldn't have to listen to his father's constant nagging in the afterlife. Before he could act, however, a surge of energy erupted from his heart. The demon was shocked by the dazzling light, wondering if the kid's mana was detonating. The power continued to rise, sending the demon into a panic, screaming that this was impossible. He became bound and surrounded by countless restraints of light before everything was swallowed in a massive explosion. A notification followed, announcing that Lin Fong had obtained a new talent, the legacy class Necromancer. Lin Fong regained consciousness in shock. He was still alive and could still control his body. The demon hadn't succeeded. He then realized he could also manipulate the same aura the demon had used. Checking the notification window, he saw that his class had mutated into Spirit Farmstead Master, Unique Level 1, with his stats listed as Strength 300, Constitution 300, Agility 100, Mana 10, Spirit 100, and Luck 300. His skills now included Appraisal, Reclamation, Undead Affinity, Passive, Efficient Planting, Overgrowth, Beginner, Rapid Harvest, Undead Summoning, Beginner, Increased Yield, Soul Siphon, Passive, and Farm Tool Mastery at max level. Lin Fong noticed that his level had reset to 1, but all the stats from his max level farmer class were still intact. He realized that his mana had increased because of that bastard soul power, which meant that when he leveled up again, his stats could break past a normal farmer's limits. There was also a new skill, Undead Summoning. He wondered if he could actually summon the undead and desperately hoped he wouldn't end up summoning that guy. He experimented by channeling magic through both hands, trying different combinations until the farmer's mana and the necromancer's mana began to fuse together. Closing his eyes, he thought through the possibilities. His class tree hadn't changed. He hadn't lost the farmer class. Instead, he had gained another one, Necromancer. The person who entered his body really had been a legendary legacy class holder, which made him question whether the man was actually dead. He could feel that this power wasn't fully his yet. If he failed to tame it and convert it completely, not only would his farmer class collapse and disappear, but his consciousness would eventually be devoured again. He also muttered that the disgusting yellow glow really did look the part. He attempted a summoning. A magic circle appeared, and from it emerged two figures, the undead sage at level 1 and the undead wild hunt at level 1. Lin Fong realized it was truly them. Even though their levels had been reset, they still retained their battle instincts and could level up again. He sensed the enforcement team approaching and knew he had to leave immediately. No one would believe that an ordinary farmer had killed two extraordinary individuals, and if his current situation was exposed, it could lead to fatal consequences. His top priority was to find a place with shelter, resources, and hidden land where he could experiment with this dangerous new power and turn his father's theories into reality. One day later at Lin Fong's farmland, he noted that an entire day had passed, and the necromancer's influence on his class still hadn't faded. A TV broadcast played in the background, announcing that it was the birthday of an old agronomy teacher. While using magic on the crops, Lin Fong observed that everything catalyzed by his new power had started turning strange, and the more they grew, the stranger and scarier they became. The crops had become so bizarre that they were even snatching birds straight out of the sky. Lin Fong couldn't believe what he was seeing. If anyone else witnessed it, they would probably assume the demon clan had invaded. He decided he needed to get rid of it immediately. He later realized that the new mana had caused an ordinary crop to undergo such a terrifying mutation. However, if he could control this power and guide it properly, he might be able to cultivate the unique varieties his father had always envisioned but never succeeded in creating, the kind of high-value crops that could strengthen a person's class. On the TV, the same news anchor interrupted the broadcast with an urgent wanted notice. The legacy class holder, Necromancer Haizong, had launched a rebellion the previous day and murdered Dean Yu. His crimes were described as heinous. Anyone providing information would be rewarded, while anyone sheltering him would be treated as an accomplice. Lin Fong realized he had to be extremely careful. The necromancer's undead power absolutely couldn't be revealed. He needed to think of a name for his undead followers to avoid suspicion. He suddenly came up with the idea of calling them farmhands. His class panel listed him as a spirit farmstead master, so having a few helpers was perfectly normal. The news continued, stating that in order to deal with the increasing pressure from the demon clan, the Extraordinary Academy was expanding enrollment. All candidates who passed the examination would gain preferential access to academy resources and be granted a private manor for cultivating high-tier crops along with special subsidies. Enrolled students could also hire farmers to grow high-recovery crops for them. Lin Fong thought that the academy's land was safe, fertile, and resource-rich. It was exactly what he needed right now. He had to get in. The necromancer identity was a ticking time bomb, but a spirit farmstead master was just a farmer in everyone else's eyes. At the Extraordinary Academy registration plaza, Lin Fong waited in line with the others. When asked for his information, name, age, awakened class, and level, he answered. He introduced himself as Lin Fong, 18 years old, with the class Spirit Farmstead Master, level 1. The examiner checked Lin Fong's information on the paper and muttered that he had never heard of a Spirit Farmstead Master before. He assumed it was just another non-combat class trying to sneak through, and told Lin Fong to release his class aura. Lin Fong did as instructed, but after sensing it, the examiner clicked his tongue and said it was just the useless aura of farmer class. He called for the next person and told Lin Fong not to waste his time. The people waiting nearby burst into laughter. Someone mocked him for making up such a ridiculous class name and said that a level 1 farmer trash actually dared to register. Another person told him to hurry back to his fields. The student in front even tried flattering the instructor, saying that he wouldn't hire someone like Lin Fong to farm for him, and that he shouldn't drag down the school's strength. Lin Fong insisted that his class was a mutated type and asked the instructor to give him a chance, saying his fundamentals were solid. The instructor scoffed and questioned what kind of fundamentals a level 1 piece of trash could possibly have. He ordered security to throw him out. Before they could touch him, Lin Fong quickly held up the admission brochure and pointed out that it clearly stated all class users were allowed to take the exam, warning that he would report them if necessary. He even threatened to contact the Supervision Bureau, saying there was a teacher preventing him from taking the academy exam. The instructor immediately stopped and shouted at him for daring to make such threats, promising that he would make Lin Fong suffer the consequences. He declared that there was no way a level 1 farmer could pass the test anyway. Some of the people in line whispered that the instructor was going too far, even if Lin Fong had a farmer class. Turning him away was one thing, but humiliating him like this was unnecessary. Someone mentioned that the instructor had failed his own promotion and had been sent to the admissions office, which might explain his mood. The instructor then yelled that anyone who didn't want to take the exam could get lost. Later, Lin Fong was moved to another testing area, where the instructor sneered at the group and told them it wasn't too late to admit defeat and kowtow in thanks for being allowed to leave. Lin Fong thought the process was too slow. He summoned his followers and instructed them that waiting for the rabbits to wander into the traps would take forever. He ordered them to quietly eliminate the demon-horned rabbits roaming nearby without letting anyone else notice. The summoned beings rushed into the surrounding forest and carried out his orders exactly. They wiped out so many rabbits that it was hard to believe. Even Lin Fong was stunned. He thought that the 2 summons were unbelievably strong even at level 1, and felt as if he had struck gold. Soon after, the bell rang and the instructor announced that time was up. All candidates were told to come out and hand over the rabbit horns they had collected. The first student stepped forward with only 2, and was immediately declared a failure. Another came with 3, and was also marked as failed. Someone arrived empty-handed, and the instructor immediately called him useless trash, telling him to get as far away as possible. The crowd whispered among themselves. Usually, there were plenty of rabbits. Why had they been so hard to find this time? One student managed to bring 4 horns, which the instructor considered merely decent, noting that some candidates didn't get a single one, and would have to wait for the next enrollment expansion. Eventually, Lin Fong and the instructor came face to face. The instructor mocked him, demanding to see his haul and betting that he didn't have a single horn. In response, Lin Fong triggered his storage. He had collected so many that he practically needed a teleportation circle just to dump them all out. The pile was overwhelming. The instructor was left staring with his mouth wide open, and even the student standing behind him couldn't hide his shock. The instructor counted a total of 500 demon-horned rabbit horns. Lin Fong calmly repeated, "The total is 500. Would you like to count them again?" "You cheated!" The instructor accused, his face red. At that moment, the director arrived and cut him off, scolding him for making things difficult for a child and demanding to know who had taught him such unprofessional behavior. The instructor panicked at the sight of the director, nervously stuttering, asking why he was there. "If I hadn't come," the director snapped, "all my pet rabbits would have been wiped out by someone with no professional ethics." He then turned to Lin Fong and informed him that he had passed the preliminary exam. Lin Fong immediately bowed and thanked the director for his fairness. The director paused, frowning slightly. He remarked that Lin Fong felt strangely familiar, which made Lin Fong uneasy. He worried that he had already been exposed, the last thing he needed after making it this far. Suddenly, the director asked, "What is your relationship with Professor Lin?" Lin Fong fell silent for a moment, relieved that the director didn't seem to have noticed anything unusual about his class. "Professor Lin was my father," he replied. "Do you know him?" The director immediately brightened. "You're the son of my old friend." Judging the situation, he asked if Lin Fong was planning to enroll in the academy. "If you're facing any difficulties, let me know. I can open a back door for you if needed." Before he could say anything else, a female administrator walked over and reminded him that everyone was watching. The man suddenly noticed the gazes around him and tried to play it off, clearing his throat. "I was only speaking casually." He told Lin Fong that his uncle had urgent matters to handle first, but promised that once Lin Fong enrolled, he would personally show him around the academy. Lin Fong couldn't shake the feeling that this teaching director seemed incredibly unreliable. The female administrator then addressed the crowd, telling those who passed the preliminary exam to follow her. She encouraged the ones who failed not to be discouraged, reminding them there would always be a next time. Meanwhile, at the Extraordinary Academy's Sunwheel Branch investigation room, an analyst was reviewing the case. He noted that Dean Yu and Haizong had disappeared at the same time. Dean Yu must have discovered Haizong's secret and was caught during his investigation, the analyst theorized. It led to both of them taking each other down. "I believe a third party must have stolen Haizong's legacy talent," he concluded. "As long as we find the person who obtained the undead talent, we will uncover the truth." Another staff member sighed. "We understand your eagerness to prove yourself, but please stop making such brainless speculations." "None of you believe me," the analyst complained. "But I promise, I will find evidence sooner or later." Some staff members wondered if they should stop him, pointing out that he was backed by the Duke and that getting involved might be inappropriate. Someone else responded that it was better to let him go. The Sunwheel Academy was meant for cultivating elites, not for allowing people to shove their way in just for status. Just then, the director entered and announced that orders had come from above. "Once Haizang is found, you are to eliminate him on sight." "What if Haizang is already dead?" one person asked. "He might have changed his appearance," came the reply. "Anyone found using Necromancer skills is to be eliminated without hesitation." Back at the Extraordinary Academy's mission hall, the female administrator announced the re-examination requirements. All students are to clear the level 5 special dungeon outside the city, the Demon Horn Beast Lair, within a 3-hour time limit. The students immediately started panicking. "A level 5 dungeon? That's pushing it. Most of us are only level 4 or 5. Grinding down the final boss might be possible," another argued, "but completing it within 3 hours? That sounds way too difficult. Can anyone realistically do that?" She clarified, "You aren't expected to clear it alone. You are allowed to form teams with a maximum size of 5 people. After forming a party, report back to register and start the timer." The hall instantly descended into chaos. Students shouted, "Looking for groups. Need 2 more. Looking for a strong front row warrior. Elemental mage here with explosive damage. Looking for a team." One kid even called out, "I'm just a little boy. Can any big brothers carry me?" Meanwhile, Lin Fong was occupied with his status window when someone approached. He looked up to see a girl introducing herself as a level 7 magic-type class user. She said she had seen his preliminary exam results and believed anyone who could kill that many demon-horned rabbits must be extremely strong. "Would you like to team up?" she asked politely. Lin Fong thought about it. A level 7 player was definitely strong enough to solo the dungeon. If he were still just a farmer, he would have gladly accepted the offer. But his necromancer abilities absolutely couldn't be exposed, so he chose to decline. "I prefer to act alone," he told her. She smiled, wished him a successful clear, and walked away. Lin Fong then went to the instructor, who questioned why he didn't have a team. "The dungeon's difficulty shouldn't be underestimated," the man warned. "Just issue the mission, please," Lin Fong said. The instructor handed it over. "Are you aiming for the solo clear reward, the Black Bear Gale? It's an enormous boost for low-level players, but don't overestimate yourself." "Thanks for the reminder," Lin Fong replied. Soon after, Lin Fong stood outside the entrance of the demon-horned beast lair alongside the other students and instructors. The instructor looked at him again. "Where are your teammates?" "I'm entering alone," Lin Fong stated. The instructor laughed. "A level 5 dungeon is far too dangerous for a single person. Go find some teammates and come back." "The rules allow for solo entry," Lin Fong reminded him. Another instructor guessed. "He's probably aiming for the solo clear reward." "He has guts," someone else commented, "but he should consider whether he actually has the strength for it." In the end, they simply wished him good luck. Lin Fong stepped into the demon-horned beast lair. Inside, the environment was completely chaotic. Monsters with long whipping tongues were everywhere. Lin Feng analyzed the threat. Level 3 and Level 4 monsters pose no threat to me anymore. With my summons at Level 6, they can take these creatures down effortlessly. He sent energy through his body and observed that his health remained stable, although the guide mentioned there would be many monsters. The actual number he encountered was far beyond expectations. Still, he decided it was the perfect chance to test his new summoning method. From the shadows of the cave, countless eyes watched him. He activated undead summoning. This time, the undead that appeared were the very lizard-type monsters that had attacked him earlier. He ordered his minions to charge, and they immediately rushed forward, tearing through the living creatures. Lin Feng observed the results. Monster form undead retain certain traits from their pre-death state. They are extremely aggressive but have low intelligence and can only follow simple commands. On the bright side, they consumed less mana. I wonder if they can handle chores like carrying water when they aren't fighting. That would be convenient. He then sent his stronger summons into the fray as well. Once they entered the battlefield, any monster that appeared before them was instantly wiped out. While clearing the dungeon, Lin Feng was already brainstorming other uses for his summons. Humanoid undead have higher intelligence, can use their pre-death skills, and are more flexible in combat. In the future, I can have them handle tasks like weeding and fertilizing the fields. As more monsters fell, a notification appeared announcing that he had reached level 7. Lin Feng realized that only half an hour had passed, and he was already standing before the boss room. At the deepest part of the dungeon, he found the boss, a massive demonic bear bound in chains, roaring furiously. Lin Feng considered it the perfect chance to test his overall combat strength, so he summoned all his units at once. He instructed Hatch to pin the boss from the front, ordered another unit to weaken it with curses, and had the rest harass its weak points. His summons executed the commands smoothly, and he noticed their coordination was improving. He continuously restored his mana, as maintaining control over such powerful summons required a massive amount of energy. Before long, his stronger units completely overwhelmed the boss and everything nearby. A notification flashed, stating that he had reached level 8, and a pile of loot appeared. Lin Feng was disappointed to see only a 10-point increase in stamina, calling it useless and noting that it wasn't even as good as the buff from a batch of his super crops. A settlement notification then calculated the dungeon rewards. It confirmed his current classes, Farmer and Necromancer, before distributing the corresponding rewards. Lin Feng realized that the dungeon settlement had actually given him 2 sets of rewards. He wondered if he was a dual-class user and dungeon rewards could be doubled. Perhaps there was room for manipulation using the crops he grew as well. Outside the dungeon, the other students were stunned. They refused to believe he had completed the run alone. They insisted it was impossible, claiming he must have just hidden in the cave entrance for show without actually going deep inside. Someone pointed out that his clothes were completely clean. He couldn't have possibly fought against a pack of demonic beasts. Lin Feng ignored the speculation and went straight to the instructor, reporting that he was there to turn in the mission. When the instructor checked the results, she was shocked that he had actually passed and done it solo. Lin Feng simply laughed and smiled. The instructor informed Lin Feng that she would submit the mission scroll to the Academic Affairs Office. She reminded him that solo clearing a dungeon was far too risky, and that if a freshman died right after entering the academy, it would create a huge problem. Lin Feng thanked her and said he understood. She told him that the final instructor interview would begin in the academy auditorium and suggested that he rest first. After leaving the building, Lin Feng noticed that everyone around him kept staring. Meanwhile, the instructor silently hoped another teacher would drill some caution into him, as surviving in the academy would be difficult if he stayed this reckless. Lin Feng continued walking when he sensed 2 people trailing behind him. He quietly began preparing his magic while the 2 monitored him from a distance. One whispered that since he had solo cleared the dungeon, his strength clearly wasn't simple, wondering if they were making a mistake. Another dismissed the concern, pointing out that no matter how strong he was still under level 10, so his power was limited. A third noted that Lin Feng had just come out of the dungeon and must have consumed a lot of energy, and no one had seen him recover. They planned to overwhelm him with numbers. They were clearly after the Demon Bear Gale reward that granted 10 stamina. When they saw him walking farther away, they panicked and decided to act immediately. They called out for him to stop, addressing him as Farmer. Lin Feng asked, "Are you shouting at me?" They struck strange poses and accused him of taking so many rewards by himself, asking if he wasn't afraid of bursting from them. One claimed he must have had dumb luck and picked up a bargain. Another demanded that he hand over the demon bear Gale and the skill scroll. The third warned him to be sensible, or they would teach a farmer the true power of a combat class. Lin Fong was a little embarrassed by the scene and asked, "Why, out of all the examinees, did you choose me?" One of them sneered. "Are you pretending not to know?" Another explained that the exclusive reward for a solo clear, the demon bear Gale, was valuable and added 10 stamina, and that such an item wasn't something a farmer should be holding. Lin Fong couldn't believe the fuss. He thought that if 10 stamina was considered amazing, then the watermelons he grew every summer could add the same amount without needing to struggle through a dungeon. He casually asked if the item they were talking about was the one he was holding. The moment they saw the item, all three of them became greedy and demanded that Lin Fong hand it over. But before anyone could touch it, the item flared up as if it were bursting into flames. A voice suddenly asked, "What do you think you are doing?" The level 7 girl from earlier, Ailing, had arrived. She reminded them that private fighting was prohibited inside the academy and asked if they wanted to be disqualified. One of the boys told her the matter had nothing to do with her and that she shouldn't interfere. Ailing replied that if she couldn't stand watching it happen, then it absolutely had something to do with her. She warned them to leave immediately or she would report them to the instructor and see who suffered more. The boys told her to go ahead and report, assuming she wouldn't get the chance. Since she insisted on protecting a farmer, they planned to deal with her as well. They rushed forward, declaring they would finish things quickly. Lin Fong wondered if she could handle the situation alone. Since she was a level 7 class user, she should be strong enough to deal with a few small fry. Ailing suggested that they join forces, but when she turned around, Lin Fong had already disappeared. From somewhere off to the side, Lin Fong tossed something back toward her and shouted, "Thanks for the help. The item is yours now." Ailing stared in disbelief as all three enemies charged at her. She wondered how she had gone from helping someone to being robbed. Later, inside a temporary independent restroom, Lin Fong examined the skill scroll that had dropped in the dungeon. He found it useless in its current state. Wondering why, he began injecting mana into it. A notification appeared, "Realize new skill, Special Cultivation, Beginner. Consumes mana and specific materials to cultivate and strengthen undead summons. Has a chance to increase their level, improve quality, or unlock new skills." Lin Fong confirmed that it worked and realized he needed to infuse mana from both of his classes simultaneously to activate it. He summoned his units and decided to test the new skill. After using Special Cultivation, both of his main summons advanced to level 8. The Demon-Horned Bear reached level 9, and the Demon-Horned Lizard Eagle advanced to level 7. Lin Fong was very satisfied with the results. Seeing how powerful his newly strengthened summons had become, Lin Fong couldn't help thinking that the only downside was not having new land to experiment on. He didn't want to ruin the fields at home just to test strange crops. He then spotted the girl from earlier. She called him Demon Bear Guy, but Lin Fong simply laughed and reminded her that the item belonged to her. She insisted that something so valuable couldn't possibly be given away for free. But Lin Fong still couldn't understand why anyone would treat such rotten material like a treasure. She wondered if she heard him correctly. Rotten? Lin Fong later headed deep into the forest, checking his surroundings to make sure no one was nearby. He began channeling his magic, wanting to see what effect the new skill might have on crops. A monstrous plant sprouted, but at first glance it didn't seem any different from before. Then he noticed something shocking. The crop was moving. He stared in disbelief, amazed that the plants could actually move on their own. Meanwhile, a spirit energy detector registered unusual readings, and someone began tracking them. Tuka sensed a necromancer's aura and rushed to investigate, convinced his guess was right. He planned to eliminate the source immediately. He soon came across Lin Fong, who happened to be walking past. Tuka grabbed him by the shoulder and asked, "Are you a farmer?" Lin Fong wondered if Tuka had been personally wronged by a farmer or something. Disgust flashed across Tuka's face as he pulled his hand back. He demanded to know whether Lin Fong had seen a suspicious person nearby. Lin Fong was briefly caught off guard but replied, "Actually, I have." Tuka urgently asked, "Where?" Lin Fong pointed straight at him, "Right there." Tuka was furious that a mere farmer dared to say such a thing. He declared himself an elite of the Sunwheel Academy and the nephew of the Iron Lion Duke. For a lowly farmer to be so rude to him was unforgivable, and he threatened to take Lin Fong down on the spot. Deep in the woods, Tuka's roar echoed as his body began transforming. Enraged by Lin Feng's words, he declared that a lowly farmer would pay a heavy price for such stupidity. His fury triggered a beast form transformation. His size expanded, muscles bulged, and his aura blasted through the forest, shaking trees and sending rubble flying. Lin Feng had to shield his face just to keep the debris out of his eyes. "Taste this," Lin Feng muttered. He was thinking about the monkshood in his field that had accidentally been corroded by undead mana, gaining a potent paralysis effect. The last time he tried some himself, he had been numb and unable to move for an entire day. Ground into powder, the stuff functioned perfectly as a natural anesthetic. He tossed the powder toward the raging beast. Tuka, blinded by anger, inhaled it without realizing. Within moments, his vision blurred, his limbs weakened, and dizziness hit him hard. He couldn't believe his strength was suddenly draining away. "What method did you use?" Tuka demanded, his voice slurring. Lin Feng calmly stood there, fingers pinching his nose shut so he wouldn't inhale any of the powder himself. "It's just monkshood powder, something commonly found in fields, the very places you claim to despise." And now that simple farmer's material had completely taken down the Duke's nephew. "Do you still believe farmers are useless?" Lin Feng asked. "If so, you're stupid. Farmers can do plenty of crazy things, sometimes more than combat classes. We can even beat them." Then, while Tuka lay paralyzed, Lin Feng walked up and delivered a solid punch straight to his beast form head. Later, when the transformation finally wore off, Tuka was seen bound tightly to a tree. Lin Feng told him, "If you can't even beat a farmer, then you have no right calling yourself an elite. I'll leave you here to cool off. When someone eventually finds you, consider it a lesson learned." Suddenly, an academy-wide announcement blared, calling for all candidates to gather at the auditorium for the instructor interview. Lin Feng realized the interview was starting and rushed off. He absolutely couldn't miss this. Outside the extraordinary academy auditorium, crowds had gathered. Many candidates weren't even interested in studying. They were just there for the girls, dreaming of a luxurious, carefree life funded entirely by their families, enjoying everything without effort or responsibility before real life eventually crushed their dreams. The pampered boys outside the auditorium kept gossiping as Lin Feng walked by. "That's the guy who solo cleared the level 5 dungeon," someone whispered. "He only knows how to run away and live off a woman," another claimed. "He's far worse than Cyan Bu," someone else sneered. Another added, "While Lin Feng might be strong compared to normal candidates, I'm a level 5 elite, so the advantage is clearly mine." Ailing approached Lin Feng and tried handing the item back again, insisting she didn't want to keep it. "Keep it," Lin Feng repeated. "I have no use for it at all." He casually munched on something and a notification popped up in his vision. "Temporary Constitution +2. Temporary Constitution +2. People nearby were still staring at him, instead of paying attention to their girls, who suddenly seemed less interesting compared to the mysterious farmer who had cleared a dungeon alone. Lin Feng, however, didn't understand any of the fuss. He wondered why everyone treated such junk like treasure and whether they were all idiots. Inside the auditorium, rows of instructors sat behind long tables. One of them announced, during the interview, "While instructors choose their students, students also choose their instructors. We are meant to make each other successful. Students whose names are called, step forward." The first candidate called was Jin. He walked forward, introduced himself as a level 6 Earth Attribute warrior, and demonstrated his ability by summoning rock armor. Aura surged around him, and his stone armor looked solid and impressive, though nothing compared to Master Chief. One instructor nodded in approval. "I am a level 44 Earth Berserker. Would you like me as your instructor?" Xian agreed immediately, practically vibrating with excitement. Next, the name Wu was called, and then Lin Feng. He stood up and walked toward the panel. Even now, people all around continued staring at him with that same thick mix of jealousy, suspicion, and hatred. Even with all the stares and whispered judgments drilling into his back, Lin Feng walked forward without a care. He introduced himself calmly. "I am Lin Feng, level 8. Occupation, Spirit Farmstead Master." His aura flared out. Several girls quietly gasped. "Reaching level 8 at his age is impressive," one whispered. "He's still just a farmer," another pointed out. "I'm not interested in farmers." A guy scoffed. "The Extraordinary Academy exists to train elites for the front lines, not to raise ordinary people into future cannon fodder." Another instructor tried to calm the rising tension. Lin Feng's preliminary test and retest results were both excellent. so he clearly has skill and talent. The director cleared his throat. Since opinions differ so much, I suggest conducting a combat ability assessment. All the instructors immediately agreed. One woman approved with a simple nod, while another instructor muttered that he didn't care either way. He just wanted to go home and eat something nice. The director turned to Lin Fong. Are you willing? The ultimate purpose of training here is to send talent to the front lines against the demon clan. Without combat potential, joining the front lines would only result in a meaningless sacrifice. Lin Fong's mind raced. A combat ability test? Right now, openly fighting would risk revealing my necromancer abilities, something I absolutely cannot allow. He needed to be extremely cautious. For now, he forced a pleasant smile, hiding every trace of unease. I agree. Later, at a temporary clearing within the auditorium grounds, everyone gathered to watch. The examiner, a powerful instructor known as Old G, stood across from Lin Fong. He explained that the test was simple. Last 5 minutes against him to prove he had combat potential. The moment Old G activated his power, the ground trembled. His aura surged outward like a storm. The watching students buckled under the pressure. Many were forced to their knees, unable to withstand the weight of his spiritual force. Is this truly the pressure of someone above level 40? They whispered in awe. But then, everyone in the audience froze. Through the crushing pressure of a level 44 instructor, they saw something that made their jaws drop. A normal little farmer was still standing there. He wasn't trembling, wasn't on his knees, and wasn't gasping for breath like everyone else. He was simply bowing slightly while striking a pose suspiciously similar to Iron Man charging his repulsors. He's acting like nothing is happening, someone whispered in disbelief. The instructor seemed impressed. Just for your persistence, I look highly upon you. Use all your abilities and attack with full power. Hearing that, Lin Fong sprang into action. He admitted inwardly that the pressure of a level 44 expert was indeed terrifying, but it was still within what he could handle for now. He gathered mana in his hands, forming a glowing orb, and called out, "Come out, my servants!" Wrapped in spiraling threads of nature mana, the undead summons began materializing. Lin Fong felt relieved it worked. Masking undead creatures with nature mana effectively hides their necromancer aura. It's the only way I can safely summon without exposing my forbidden abilities. A vague, cabbage-shaped bear silhouette emerged first. Lin Fong thought to himself, honestly, who would ever guess this cabbage-headed bear is actually an undead? When the summoning finished, the audience gasped. It looks like a rare variant occupation, they commented, marveling at the richness of the nature mana surrounding the creature. Interest crackled through the crowd. They were finally seeing something unusual. The instructor drew his blades, both covered in their own blazing aura. The summon and the instructor stood face to face. The instructor had no idea what kind of monster he was about to fight. Both charged at each other at full speed, and their clash sent shockwaves of aura rippling across the clearing. The instructor began attacking wildly, screaming as he pushed forward. The summons staggered under the barrage, showing signs of strain. Watching from the sidelines, the director commented, "That summon is remarkably loyal. Any other summoned creature would have been forcibly unsummoned after taking that much damage, but this one is still stubbornly pushing forward, even throwing punches." The instructor dodged, and the director clicked his tongue in disappointment. Is Old G simply too weak? He couldn't understand why the fight looked so unimpressive from Old G's side. Meanwhile, Lin Fong remained completely calm. He knew the truth. They're undead, he thought. They don't feel pain, and they don't make a fuss. These flesh wounds only took a tiny bit of mana to heal, which was exactly why they didn't care. The instructor originally just wanted to show off in front of the students, but he hadn't expected Lin Fong to actually be pretty talented. The disappointed look on the director's face was unbearable, so he decided he needed to use something real. He told Lin Fong not to worry and that he would compensate him later for the destroyed summon. Then he told him to watch closely. Normally, summoners had to pay a heavy price to form contracts with their creatures. Once a summon died, the contract ended, finished, gone for good. That was common knowledge. The instructor activated the berserker skill Bloodthirst. With a massive punch, the undead summon was knocked backward. Its form cracked apart like shattered stone and then dissolved, disappearing completely. The instructor stood smugly with his arms crossed, clearly satisfied with himself. He confidently announced that Lin Fong must feel terrible having his summon destroyed, and said it was fine to cry it out. He liked students with genuine emotions. In the instructor's imagination, Lin Fong was already sniffling like a pitiful farm boy whose toy had been broken. But reality was the exact opposite. Lin Fong stood there completely expressionless, not sad, not panicked, not even mildly bothered. His face was so unreadable that no one could figure out what he was thinking. The instructor was confused. He wondered if Lin Fong was so overwhelmed with sadness that he'd gone numb. However, the next moment countless vines burst out from beneath Lin Fong's feet. They wrapped forward like serpents, flying straight toward the instructor and binding him tightly before he could even blink. Shocked, he yelled angrily, demanding to know what was happening and accusing Lin Fong of playing dirty by having so many summons. The vines squeezed until the instructor struggled, until suddenly, with a furious shout and a surge of power, he snapped them apart. The director finally intervened, telling them both to stop. He declared that Lin Fong had proven himself and was qualified to become a student of the Extraordinary Academy. However, he added that all nature-type instructors were currently deployed at the battlefield, so there was no one available to teach Lin Fong for the time being. Lin Fong immediately asked the most important question. Then, what about my cultivation resources? The director assured Lin Fong that the academy would never deduct anyone's cultivation resources. Everything would be issued, normally, according to standard. He added that, since Lin Fong had performed exceptionally in the exam, he was allowed to make one special request. Hearing that, Lin Fong felt like heaven had opened. Freedom and resources, truly a paradise. So, he immediately said, "Then I want a piece of land." The director blinked. That was absolutely not what he expected. For most students, a request like this was the moment to demand high-grade equipment, rare cultivation treasures, or maybe even a luxurious private hall where they could dance with beautiful girls until morning instead of studying. But this kid was different. The director confirmed if Lin Fong really didn't want any precious resources or high-tier items and only wanted land. Lin Fong laughed and explained that he was a spirit farm lord. Without land, how could he call himself one? The director nodded and agreed. He told Lin Fong there was a piece of abandoned training wasteland in the west of the city that had been idle for a long time. He granted Lin Fong permission to use it however he wanted. This was exactly what Lin Fong had hoped for. He thanked the director sincerely. The instructors then told him to go rest backstage. Later, inside a quiet room, Lin Fong's file sat on a table. An instructor looked over it and murmured that Spirit Farm Lord was quite an interesting occupation. A female instructor entered urgently and told the principal she had something important to report. The principal asked what it was. She handed him a delicate scroll-like object. When he opened it, the contents were shocking. The report confirmed that Tuka, their investigation team member searching for Hisha, had been murdered by a necromancer. His body had been discovered not far from the auditorium. The report stated they suspected a necromancer had infiltrated the academy. This was a monumental problem, one that could shake the entire academy. But Lin Fong hadn't killed Tuka. He only tied him up to teach him a lesson. Whoever finished the job had framed Lin Fong deliberately, and in a place where everyone already looked down on farmers, we know exactly who they'd point their fingers at first. So, I wonder what will happen next. At the training wasteland in the west of the city, Lin Fong walked across the barren ground while checking the paper in his hand. He confirmed aloud that this was indeed the place mentioned, the training wasteland in the west of Fenyuan City. A soft green glow formed in his palm as he activated the land assignment spell. A notification appeared, 100% mu of training land west of Fenyuan City. Ownership, Extraordinary Academy. Temporary rental agreement, 1 year. Exclusion barrier activated, student Lin Fong only. Lin Fong clicked his tongue and commented that giving him only 1 year was a little stingy. But considering that most students would be heading to the battlefield after a year anyway, it was understandable. Besides, he was thrilled he now had a whole 100 bu of land entirely under his control for an entire year. He thought this was what deserved to be called a spirit farmstead master. Everyone else might look down on the occupation, but the true madness hidden within it was something only he knew. It would allow him to control the situation from the shadows while staying above all of them. He pointed a finger upward, aura swirling violently around him, and summoned all his undead companions to the field. Now, he said, let's get to work. Immediately, the entire group of summons scattered across the land. Some were plowing the soil, others were handling water channels. Some zipped across the ground like tractors, tilling rows at incredible speed. Meanwhile, Lin Fong relaxed under the sunlight, stretching comfortably. Magic really does change lives, he sighed. The ancients truly didn't lie to me. Suddenly, someone tapped him on the shoulder. Lin Fong assumed the reclamation work was done, and commented that their initiative must be stronger than he expected. But one of the undead only buzzed in response. Lin Fong inspected him closely and sighed. Expecting undead to have independent consciousness was still too much, he thought. Feeling slightly disappointed, he walked away. Unbeknownst to him, the celestial undead behind him looked confused, then smirked faintly. A hint of intelligence one Lin Fong completely missed. Lin Fong entered the greenhouse where he began inspecting the plants inside. Floating notifications hovered above each crop. Stamina +1, permanently unripe. Attack power +1, permanently unripe. Life +1, temporarily unripe. Seeing the glowing notifications above the plants, Lin Fong felt genuinely happy. He thought that while other people cultivated their strength through long, bitter training, he could improve using crops, balanced nutrition, and a solid foundation. It was truly a blessing. He also felt it was a pity that only he could make crops with these effects. If he could increase the yield and let everyone improve through his plants, wouldn't the demon clan be nothing more than clay chickens and pottery dogs before them? After tending to the greenhouse, he realized that just planting the special crops wouldn't be enough. He needed to plant plenty of ordinary crops outside to camouflage everything. Otherwise, the greenhouse's secrets would be discovered, and that was the last thing he could afford. Exposure would ruin all of the insane plans he was crafting in his mind. So for now, he simply rolled up his sleeves and got to work. 3 days later, the wasteland had completely transformed, bigger, greener, and more alive than anything it had been in years. Lin Fong stood in the middle of the field, shovel in hand, demonstrating to his larger summons how to dig properly. He asked if they understood and hoped they would finally grasp what he meant. A few of the undead still looked confused as they clumsily mimicked his movements, but at least they were trying. He sighed with satisfaction, thinking that having this group of helpers made planting vegetables much faster. Then he noticed one of them doing something suspicious. Lin Fong shouted, "Hey, what are you doing?" The frightened undead flinched. He had been happily munching on a plump potato. Lin Fong marched over, and the undead stiffened in fear before slowly turning his head. At that moment, a notification appeared. Undead lizard, level 6. Bone density increasing, temporarily. Defense temporarily increasing. Lin Fong stared in disbelief. All of the undead lizards were his gains from the previous dungeon, but the only difference was that this one had eaten a potato. He wondered if the undead could actually receive the effects of spiritual crops. If that were true, wouldn't that be absolutely insane? In the days that followed, Lin Fong began systematically experimenting, feeding different crops to different undead and carefully recording every change, every buff, and every mutation. The research of a true spirit farmstead master had officially begun. Meanwhile, another figure appeared near the training wasteland, moving silently between the crops and shadows. He frowned as he observed the surroundings. It was strange, when he had probed the area earlier, none of these structures or plants had existed. The barrier around the land seemed flimsy to him, nothing more than a paper-thin marshy wall. He concluded he could tear through it with a single slash. Seeing only one person inside, he wondered if the whole thing was a trap. The idea intrigued him. Just as he stepped forward, something beneath him triggered. He sensed it too late. He tried to stop whatever was happening, but chaos erupted instantly. Something burst out of the soil and exploded right beneath him. The sudden blast startled him, though he managed to dodge at the last second. He scoffed, saying that this level of trickery wasn't enough to deal with him. But then, more of those explosive things began erupting from underground, angry, pulsing, swelling with unstable energy. Now, even the intruder felt a chill crawl up his spine. He cursed, demanding to know what these things were. A chain of massive explosions followed, so intense that the shock waves were visible from far away. The blasts all seemed rooted to a glowing green form deep beneath the ground, a magnificent being, like a fragment of the Earth's own spirit, that Lin Fong had grown. Watching the intruder with eerie, luminous eyes through thick smoke, the figure staggered back. He cursed again, saying that if he didn't need to gain the Duke's trust, he would never have come here a second time. He vowed that once he cut Lin Fong down, he would see whether these explosions could stop him. He then began slicing through everything, roots, plants, vines, and all the careful work Lin Fong and his undead had put into the field. He didn't care about the effort, he only cared about destruction. But as he hacked through the growth, something unusual caught his attention. He paused and sensed a faint aura, an aura belonging to the undead. His expression changed. A memory surfaced, one from a wise priest. On this reconnaissance trip to Fenyuan City, your main mission is to find the Necromancer, Hisha. After our last contact, he disappeared. He has an agreement with our clan. The intruder's eyes narrowed. He wondered if this place was actually Hisha's hiding spot. But why would Hisha hide here of all places? Could he have betrayed their clan? The intruder clicked his tongue, thinking that for the secret technique of immortality, a traitor like Hisha really had no shame at all. The intruder felt an even stronger surge of energy pulsing from the plants around him. The longer he stayed, the more unstable the aura became. He decided it was better not to linger. Finding Hisha was the priority. Night turned to day. Lin Fong woke up, grabbed his tools, and headed out cheerfully. He'd already catalyzed and fertilized most of the fields yesterday, and today he would handle the remaining areas. But the moment he opened his eyes fully and looked ahead, he froze. His jaw dropped. He stared for several seconds, speechless. Then he dropped his tool with a loud clatter and sprinted toward the greenhouse. His heart pounded, his mind blanked. My greenhouse. Everything he had so carefully grown looked devastated. Above him, several figures suddenly descended from the sky. Lin Fong braced himself, thinking they were enemies. But after getting a closer look, he muttered in confusion. Why would enforcement team members appear here? The enforcement officers landed and scanned the area. One of them announced that their demonic energy detector showed the source of the disturbance was right at this location. They wondered why the training wasteland suddenly looked like this and questioned whether demon clan members might be lurking nearby. A notification popped up before them. This land has already been leased. The officers exchanged glances, so it wasn't unowned land after all. Still, they insisted that they couldn't rule out demon clan activity and needed to be cautious. One of them addressed Lin Fong politely, saying they were from the enforcement team, but the atmosphere was far from welcoming. Lin Fong felt extremely uneasy. Why would the enforcement team come here of all places? The lead officer explained that their instruments had detected demonic energy here and asked Lin Fong to open the barrier to allow them inside for inspection. Another added that even they weren't clear on the exact situation yet. Lin Fong's stomach tightened. Demonic energy on the land he'd only rented a few days ago? How was that possible? Before he could respond, someone from the back, clearly irritated and impatient, snapped. How long does it take just to get a farmer to open a barrier? Tuka was just killed by the demon clan, and now demon aura appears here. If you ask me, he's a spy. The man's tone was cold and venomous. His expression was deadly serious. Even Lin Fong felt a chill run down his spine. One of the enforcement members pointed straight at Lin Fong and coldly ordered him to surrender, calling him a spy. His expression made it clear he was ready to do whatever it took. He wasn't about to show mercy to a lowly farmer. Another enforcement member spoke up, saying that the captain might be acting a bit impulsively. After all, 2 people had just died, and demonic energy had appeared here again. Under those circumstances, Lin Fong was indeed highly suspicious. In truth, both enforcement members were already wary of Lin Fong. The fact that he was a farmer made them even more suspicious. In their eyes, a farmer couldn't possibly cause something like this on his own, so the only explanation was that he must be a spy, someone who didn't act directly but helped the demon clan from behind the scenes. One of them asked Lin Fong to cooperate with the investigation and open the barrier. Lin Fong felt his heart sink. He knew he absolutely couldn't let them in. After everything that had happened inside the field, letting the enforcement team investigate freely would be disastrous. He had to find a way to drive them away. Putting on an innocent, almost pitiful expression, he said that his class was lowly and he had always been looked down upon. He explained that he only wanted to quietly cultivate and improve himself in peace. Yet now, even the enforcement team was suspecting him. He asked if they really thought someone like him could do such things, and whether a person couldn't even ask for a bit of peace anymore. One of the enforcement members was visibly shaken and turned to the captain, saying that Lin Fong already seemed miserable enough and questioning whether they really needed to push this further. The captain, however, wasn't fooled in the slightest. He barked back that anyone could pretend to be pitiful and that he wouldn't fall for such tricks. He clearly believed Lin Fong was just acting. Without another word, the captain raised his fist and charged forward, striking straight toward Lin Fong with tremendous force. He didn't hold back at all, either because he didn't care that Lin Fong was a farmer, or because he believed Lin Fong was far stronger than he looked. If Lin Fong had truly been an ordinary farmer, that punch would have crippled him on the spot. But instead, Lin Fong caught the captain's fist. Lin Fong immediately realized something was wrong. He had added 2, much to his constitution. Normally, he wouldn't have felt that punch at all, but now he had to pretend. So, even though he had already stopped the captain's fist, he deliberately staggered back, acting as if he had been hit brutally. The captain stared at him in disbelief. He muttered that he had used so much force in that strike, yet Lin Fong was still alive. Something was clearly wrong. No matter how pitiful Lin Fong tried to look, the captain's suspicion only deepened. At this point, it felt like he genuinely wanted Lin Fong dead. Lin Fong accused him of trying to torture a confession just to close the case quickly. He leaned harder into the act, looking like an oppressed, miserable little farmer. This time, another enforcement member finally snapped. He grabbed the captain's arm and told him to calm down. He pointed out that what Lin Fong was using was nature magic. The demon clan despised anything related to nature. This was common knowledge, something even a 6-year-old would know. The captain hesitated. He realized he might have gone a bit too far. Still, since Lin Fong was just a lowly farmer, he didn't feel much guilt. Beating a farmer didn't count as a crime in his eyes. The calmer enforcement members stepped forward and apologized, saying they had completely misunderstood the situation. They admitted that Lin Fong's nature magic was extremely pure and promised to clarify everything properly in the official report. Lin Fong immediately latched onto that lifeline and thanked the man, calling him a fair and just officer. The man replied that it was simply his duty and apologized again for the captain's excessive behavior. But from behind them, the captain's anger hadn't cooled at all. Watching this scene only irritated him further. He raised his hand again, preparing an even more vicious strike. Before he could act, the other enforcement members stepped in front of Lin Fong. They refused to let any more injustice happen and made it clear they wouldn't allow the captain to cross the line again. That only enraged him further, but with his own team standing against him, he had no choice. With a cold snort, he mounted his dragon and took off. Lin Fong watched them disappear into the distance and sighed inwardly. This was troublesome. Farming alone clearly wasn't enough anymore. He needed real power for self-preservation. Just then, a paper bird fluttered down in front of him and spoke in a crisp voice. Freshman Lin Fong, please gather at the Academy drill grounds tomorrow morning to participate in the new student capability assessment and grading battles. The message ended with a firm reminder that absence was not permitted. It was stamped by the Extraordinary Academy Academic Affairs Office. After reading it, Lin Fong let out a long sigh. He wondered why living a peaceful life was so difficult. Trouble kept piling up one after another, as if the world was determined not to let him stay low-key for even a moment. Elsewhere, 2 figures stood quietly observing. One of them, a woman, remarked that the nature magic she sensed was both pure and extremely potent. She asked the principal if the child was really just a farmer. The principal admitted he wasn't sure. According to the system, Lin Fong's profession was indeed spirit farmstead master. The woman raised an eyebrow, surprised that someone like her, a level 50 nature-type archmage named Vera, would take an interest. She speculated that it sounded like a mutated class and noted that the boy clearly had secrets. Still, she said that the nature magic alone was enough to clear him of any suspicion of colluding with the demon clan. The demon clan couldn't possibly fake such a strong life aura. It would actually make them sick just to be near it. The principal agreed, noting that certain people should calm down now. He added that the real show was only just beginning. An aura wrapped around the 2 of them, and they vanished from sight, having already obtained what they came for. Later, at the Extraordinary Academy freshman drill grounds, crowds of students gathered, buzzing with complaints. Someone asked why there was another test when the interviews and instructor selections were already done. Another complained that the academy seemed to be throwing test after test at them without any logic. Someone else claimed to have insider information and teased the others, only to immediately say he wasn't telling. Lin Fong stood quietly among them, uninterested in what he thought were pointless ramblings from a bunch of idiots. Soon, a female instructor arrived and ordered everyone to be silent. She acknowledged that they all had questions, especially about why an all-student entrance assessment was being held after the instructor interviews. She explained that urgent military intelligence had arrived from the front lines the previous day. The demon clan's offensive had intensified, and the fortress outside the 3rd barrier was now in critical danger. The academy had received direct orders to immediately dispatch a batch of vital forces to provide support. The students were stunned. One of them blurted out in disbelief that they had just enrolled, and now they were being sent toward the front lines. Another student protested that they had been told they would first study and cultivate. The instructor calmly replied with a grim proverb, "If the nest is overturned, how can the eggs remain intact?" If the fortress fell, the demon clan's spearhead would point straight at Fenuan City. At that point, she asked, Did they really think they could still cultivate peacefully inside the academy? She made it clear that this was not a request, it was a conscription. In humanity's time of peril, no one was allowed to sit on the sidelines. The crowd fell silent. A small boy hesitantly called out to the girl beside him, but before he could finish, Lin Fong was already standing quietly nearby. The girl gently reassured the boy not to worry, though she couldn't help thinking about Lin Fong. He was clearly outstanding, and she wondered whether he would be selected for the conscription. The instructor then ordered all freshmen to follow instructions and enter the drill grounds to prepare for the practical combat assessment. As others eagerly rushed forward, Lin Fong hung back, thinking that as a farmer class user, he probably wouldn't be selected for the front line at this stage. Otherwise, all of his farming plans would be completely disrupted. Soon, Lin Fong found himself facing a female opponent. She commented that she had heard the spirit farmstead master was good at hiding. Striking a dramatic pose, she declared that he would turn to ash beneath her flames. Fire surged beneath her feet, lifting her into the air as blazing waves spread outward. Her attack was fast and fierce, but Lin Fong sidestepped it effortlessly. He remarked that it was too slow and that her magic condensation was insufficient. He even added that her fire wasn't even hot enough to roast the sweet potatoes in his field. That comment enraged her. She immediately began chanting again, calling upon a greater fire spirit. Flames erupted even more violently this time. But Lin Fong had no interest in seeing what else she could do. He just wanted the match to end quickly. He stepped in and struck, pointing out that her windup was far too long and that such techniques would never work in real combat. She was sent flying. The result was announced. Lin Fong was the winner. Battle after battle followed. Lin Fong versus Ryan. Lin Fong versus Zomo. Lin Fong versus Lin Zishi. Lin Fong versus Luna. Lin Fong versus Bull. Lin Fong versus Gramble. Lin Fong won every single match. After so many consecutive victories, he finally thought that this should be more than enough. If things continued like this, he figured he could afford to lose the next few matches. A woman approached Lin Fong and told him that with his current talent and potential, he was fully qualified to aim for a higher platform. Lin Fong thanked her politely, though he honestly had no idea what this higher platform was supposed to mean. She explained that by accumulating credits and passing further assessments, he could advance to the higher-level Sunhei Academy. There, he would have access to better cultivation methods, stronger instructors, and might even obtain legendary weapons or powerful demonic beast mounts. Lin Fong thanked her again but said he didn't really need any of that. After all, he had already seen dragons flying around, and those things didn't impress him much anymore. The woman was taken aback and asked what he actually wanted if none of those things interested him. Lin Fong pointed calmly and said that he only wanted a better and larger piece of land where he could farm in peace. That answer shocked her. She clarified that she meant his ultimate goal, what he intended to do after finishing farming those lands. Lin Fong replied that he planned to farm more land, let more people have land to farm, and make it so that anyone who wanted to farm would be able to do so. Vera was clearly surprised. She thought that this child actually wanted to reclaim land on a global scale, and found his ambition unexpectedly enormous. At that moment, the principal arrived and asked whether the wasteland in the west of the city that Lin Fong was already developing wasn't enough for him. Lin Fong felt a little embarrassed and laughed, replying that when it came to farming, the more land, the better. Soon after, the next match was announced, Lin Fong versus Aling. Lin Fong immediately responded and headed toward the battlefield. Both the principal and Vera noticed him moving. The principal commented that the kid was quite honest. Vera said that since the child wanted it, they might as well give it to him. When the principal asked whether she intended to take him in, Vera replied that he was a very interesting kid. The announcement for battle preparation sounded. Aling stepped forward and said that she hadn't expected to fight Lin Fong, but that she would go all out in this battle. Her expression was extremely serious. Lin Fong, however, said frankly that he couldn't beat her and that he had originally planned to concede. To Aling, those words felt like pure humiliation. Her expression darkened as she charged forward, accusing him of mocking her. Now she was even angrier than before. Lin Fong immediately sensed something was wrong. He realized that Aling had jumped straight into her second combat phase without any hesitation and muttered to himself, wondering if this was really how she liked to fight. He quickly began preparing his own farm aura. Thick vines burst out of the ground and surged toward Aling, wrapping around her limbs. The sudden counter caught her off guard. She had been charging forward at full speed, but now she was forced to stop and deal with the vines first. With a sharp shout, she unleashed a powerful kick and shattered them, breaking free with brute force. Watching the exchange, Vera couldn't help commenting that a student under level 10 possessing such pure magic power was astonishing. The principal agreed, admitting that he had been shocked the first time he saw it as well. Both of them leaned forward, growing more and more interested. Vera added that even a renowned nature cultivator who had reached level 80 didn't possess magic power as pure as Lin Feng's. She concluded that this child's future achievements would be limitless. As fiery bursts from Ailing collided with the restraining vines summoned by Lin Feng, the scene left them genuinely impressed. The principal remarked that such a high-quality seedling was extremely rare, and that with proper guidance his growth would be terrifying. Before he could finish, Vera spoke decisively, saying she had already made up her mind. She wanted to take Lin Feng as her teacher. She repeated herself to be absolutely clear. The principal nodded at first, saying it wouldn't be bad if she became his teacher, then suddenly froze. Something felt very wrong. He turned to her slowly and asked if she had said that backward. Vera calmly replied that she hadn't misspoken. She meant exactly what she said. She wanted to take Lin Feng as her teacher. The principal stared at her in disbelief and demanded to know whether her brain had been burned by the demon clan. Vera replied that even if it had been burned, she would still make the same decision. She was clearly far too impressed by Lin Feng and perhaps wanted something more than just a teacher-student relationship. At the Extraordinary Academy freshman drill grounds, a fierce battle was taking place at high speed. Both fighters were going all out, their power clashing again and again. Lin Feng thought to himself that he had already shown enough strength. He felt that if he pretended to weaken and admitted defeat, everything would go according to his plan. But suddenly, a voice came from behind, warning him that if he kept slacking off, the academy would take back the land in the west of the city and give it to someone else. Hearing that, Lin Feng's expression changed. He immediately thought that this was bad. He could not allow that to happen. Taking back the land was absolutely unacceptable. Even the woman fighting him noticed the shift. Just moments ago he had been defending passively, but now his aura completely changed. He was no longer holding back at all. Green, plant-like energy began flowing through his body as he channeled it into his hand. The woman also prepared herself, gathering flames and forming a massive fireball. She launched it straight toward him without hesitation. Lin Feng stepped forward and punched through the attack, shattering the flames instantly. Then he told her to take his serious punch. As the attack rushed toward her, fear flashed through her mind. She could feel how terrifying the power behind it was. Lin Feng then calmly said that she should just let him win. The people watching were completely shocked. One of them said that Lin Feng, the so-called farmer, had been hiding his true strength all along. Another added that compared to him, they looked like the real farmers. The woman studied herself and admitted that this level of control over nature was terrifying. She said it was like commanding power as easily as moving one's own fingers, something close to the origin itself. The result was announced. Lin Feng was the winner. Ailing acknowledged her defeat sincerely, saying she accepted it wholeheartedly. Lin Feng responded humbly, claiming that she was the truly strong one and that he only had a bit more raw strength. Inside, however, he thought about how close he had come to losing that land. Just then, the teacher stepped forward and praised him, saying that this was more like it. Lin Feng thanked him, and the principal told him to keep working hard, adding that he looked forward to seeing how far Lin Feng would go. However, as the principal walked away, Lin Feng's thoughts took a darker turn. Inside his mind, he cursed the old man, thinking that threatening him with the land was crossing the line. He silently swore that he would find a way to get back at him sooner or later. As he went about his day, that thought kept repeating in his head. The more he thought about it, the more annoyed he became. Just then, a woman approached him and politely asked if he could guide her in cultivation. Lin Feng was taken aback. He asked her if she was serious, pointing out that she was a combat-type cultivator asking a farmer for guidance. She introduced herself as Vera and said they had never met before, but she had witnessed his match. She explained that his use of natural mana was flawless, full of vitality and life, and unlike anything she had ever seen. She admitted that she had been stuck at her current realm for a long time, and felt that his path might give her some insight. Lin Feng felt a bit embarrassed by the praise, though he couldn't deny that it felt good. He asked if she was also a nature-type cultivator and mentioned that the Academy's nature instructors were still away on the battlefield. He added that he was just a farmer and didn't really have anything to teach. Vera quickly responded that skill mattered more than status. She said she didn't need to formally become his disciple. She only wished to observe him occasionally, even if it was just watching him work in the fields. Feeling his natural aura up close would be enough for her, she said. And then she even bowed deeply. Seeing her bow like that made Lin Fong panic internally. He thought that this was bad, very bad. If people found out what he was really growing in his fields, it would cause huge trouble. He immediately tried to refuse, saying that he was only a farmer with brute strength and that he truly had nothing to teach. At that moment, the principal stepped in and told him to agree, saying that she was being sincere and that he should do it for his sake. He then leaned closer and whispered something into Lin Fong's ear. Hearing those words, Lin Fong froze again. Whatever the principal had said clearly hit a nerve, and he muttered that it really wasn't a good idea. But before he could object further, the matter was settled. Vera immediately thanked him excitedly, saying she would be very careful not to disturb him. She asked if she could start right away, even offering to go with him immediately. Seeing how eager she was, and remembering what the principal had whispered, Lin Fong could only sigh inwardly. Realizing he had once again been pushed into something troublesome, he told her it was up to her and mentioned that his place was on the west side of the city. Not long after, at the outskirts of the greenhouse in the West City training wasteland, Vera could be seen busily moving around, helping out wherever she could. She kept asking if there was anything she could do. Watching her, Lin Fong thought that her attitude was at least sincere. Still, he reminded himself that he absolutely could not let her see what was really growing inside the greenhouse. As Vera wandered around, she examined the crops and commented that she would first get familiar with the surroundings. Lin Fong told her to just take a look around outside for now, explaining that he was busy tending to newly bred seedlings and that they required special care. While observing the plants, Vera's eyes gradually widened. She realized that the crops had all been nourished by extremely pure natural mana. They weren't ordinary at all, but high-grade plants with temporary attribute-boosting effects. She couldn't help but say that Lin Fong was making her more and more curious. An hour passed, and she was still examining the crops. The more she looked, the more unbelievable it felt. Finally, she asked if there was something wrong with the soil. Lin Fong casually replied that it was just ordinary soil. Vera was shocked and asked if he had really not used any mana crystals or elemental fertilizer. He answered honestly, saying that he had thought about it before, but those things were far too expensive for him. With his limited funds, he simply couldn't afford them. Vera stared at the crops again and muttered that they looked like they were slightly undernourished, yet somehow still thriving. Inside, she couldn't help but think that Lin Fong's natural mana was far beyond normal. If that was the case, maybe she could help him instead. She then mentioned that the academy had a regulation allowing students to exchange dungeon materials for special items at the academy warehouse. Hearing that, Lin Fong's interest was immediately piqued. He grabbed her by the shoulders and asked if what she said was true. Vera nodded and explained. For example, the level 10 dungeon in Storm Academy, the Gloom Forest, had a boss called the Shadowfall Cobalt Chieftain. Its drop, the Chieftain's Fang, could be exchanged for a bottle of Earth Pulse. However, she added that level 10 dungeons were extremely dangerous and usually required a full team of 5 to challenge safely. She also noted that while the exchange regulation was currently active, it was going to be cancelled soon. Hearing that, Lin Fong immediately clenched his fists in excitement. That's perfect, he said. He added that there was no time to waste and that he would head there right away. Vera was stunned by his reaction. She quietly thought that perhaps only someone with such a pure and straightforward heart could nurture such pure natural mana. Soon after, Lin Fong arrived at the entrance of the level 10 dungeon Gloom Forest. A few guards were standing at the gate. When they saw him approaching, one of them scoffed. "What's that farmer-looking guy doing here?" he asked, wondering aloud if the kid had come to dig for wild vegetables inside the dungeon. Another guard laughed and pointed out that he was even carrying a hoe. Someone else recognized him. That's the freshman Lin Fong. He's only level 8. He questioned whether the kid had lost his mind trying to challenge a level 10 dungeon alone. Lin Fong calmly took out his identification and handed it over, stating that he wanted to apply for a solo entry into Gloom Forest. The instructor on duty frowned. He reminded Lin Fong that his level was insufficient and that entering alone would be extremely dangerous. However, Lin Fong calmly replied that according to academy regulations, any registered student had the right to apply. The instructor hesitated, clearly unsure. But just then, after noticing someone nearby, his expression changed. He cleared his throat and said that the regulations were indeed as stated, then reminded Lin Fong to act within his limits and retreat immediately if things became dangerous. As Lin Fong walked past, whispers followed him from all sides. Some mocked him, saying he was an idiot who didn't know his place. Others said he was just another rookie cannon fodder who would probably die inside. A few even commented that it would be embarrassing for the academy if someone like him died in the dungeon. Ignoring them all, Lin Fong stepped into the gloom. Inside the gloom forest, dark mist filled the air as monstrous figures began charging toward him from all directions. Seeing this, Lin Fong calmly gave an order, "Qi, Yu, Yi. Clear the path and push forward. Make it fast and clean." The summoned beings immediately surged ahead, slaughtering the monsters with ease. Compared to them, the dungeon creatures were nothing. Watching the battlefield, Lin Fong calmly issued another command, "Rise." In response, the fallen remained shifted. However, the true threat lay ahead. The Shadowfall Kobold Chieftain appeared, its level clearly marked at 12. Seeing the final monster appear, Lin Fong immediately judged the situation. To him, this was clearly the dungeon's final boss. He felt a bit disappointed, thinking that this dungeon really wasn't much after all. Wanting to finish things quickly, he gave a simple order to his summons, "Move in." The moment the Shadowfall Kobold Chieftain tried to attack, the summoned beings rushed forward and struck it head-on. Overwhelming power erupted, and before the monster could even struggle, it was completely crushed. A system notification appeared, "Shadowfall Kobold Chieftain defeated. Experience gained. Lin Fong has reached level 9. Item obtained, Chieftain's Fang." Immediately after, a new notification appeared. "Target cannot be converted into an undead due to insufficient summoner level. Conversion failed." Seeing this, Lin Fong felt a slight sense of regret. He realized that his current level was still too low to summon such a powerful undead. Still, he wasn't too bothered. The main objective had already been completed. He glanced at the fang in his possession and thought that since the item was secured, it was time to head back and exchange it for fertilizer. With that, he exited the dungeon. Outside the entrance, the same group of people was still gathered. Vera was among them. Someone beside her was saying that the frontline forces were already under pressure and that resources were limited, questioning whether it was really appropriate to exchange such valuable materials. Vera calmly responded that it wouldn't affect the front lines, explaining that what was being exchanged was fertilizer meant specifically for nature-type cultivators. The person hesitated but eventually admitted that they did have a decent stock of that material. At that moment, a system announcement echoed through the area. Announcement: the first ever solo clear of the Gloom Forest dungeon has been achieved. Clear student Lin Fong. Evaluation SS. Reward: Heroic Spirit Fragment X1. The crowd immediately erupted. Some people shouted in disbelief, saying that the Heroic Spirit Fragment was an incredibly rare item capable of strengthening the soul and enhancing class potential. Others accused him of cheating, claiming that there was no way a level 8 student could solo a level 10 dungeon and receive an SS evaluation. Several people demanded a strict investigation, insisting that the academy reclaim the reward, especially the Heroic Spirit Fragment. They argued that someone like him did not deserve it. Listening to all the noise, Vera could only sigh. She admitted that she had expected him to struggle at least a little, but she never imagined he would clear the dungeon in one go. Meanwhile, Lin Fong glanced around at the hostile gazes directed toward him. He felt a bit helpless, thinking that trouble always seemed to follow him no matter where he went. Still, he didn't dwell on it for long. In the end, all he wanted was to keep moving forward. At the entrance to the dungeon, everyone was looking at Lin Fong with suspicious eyes. He honestly couldn't understand why people always had to act like this. He was just a farmer who liked farming. What was so wrong with that? He calmly stepped forward and told the teacher that, according to academy rules, he was there to exchange his rewards for resources. Before the teacher could respond, a guard behind him sneered and said that Lin Fong's rewards had been obtained illicitly and should be confiscated. The teacher immediately refuted that claim, stating that the rewards were issued directly by the dungeon system and that the academy had no authority to seize them. The man clearly wasn't satisfied and said that he was willing to initiate a resource wager instead. Several others nearby showed interest, clearly having waited for an opportunity like this. Lin Fong asked what a resource wager was supposed to be. The man explained that it was a winner-takes-all bet where the victor would gain both parties' rewards, while the loser would lose everything. Someone else added that it would be a dungeon speedrun supervised by academy teachers to see who could clear it faster. The teacher turned to Lin Fong and asked whether he was willing to accept the wager. Lin Fong thought for a moment before saying that there was no benefit in it for him and that it sounded boring. He asked why he should even bother. Hearing that, the man grew visibly frustrated. Gritting his teeth, he said, "Fine, I'll add a Lamp of Nature blueprint to the wager." At that, Lin Fong fell silent. Vera immediately leaned closer and whispered urgently, telling him that he absolutely had to get that blueprint. She explained that the Lamp of Nature was a growth-type magic tool exclusive to the Nature Department. A blueprint could only be used once, making it extremely rare. Its effects included significantly shortening crop growth cycles without any side effects, making it the perfect tool for someone who truly loved farming. After hearing this, Lin Fong could no longer ignore the offer. Seeing his reaction, the man smirked and stepped closer, mockingly asking if the hillbilly was done thinking yet, and whether he dared to accept the bet. At the same time, unseen by Lin Fong, messages were flashing on the man's communicator. Someone reported that Lin Fong had come out of the dungeon. Another message came back telling him to stall Lin Fong at all costs. When the man asked what to do if Lin Fong ignored him, the reply was clear: use resources to bait him. Put the Lamp of Nature blueprint on the line. The man hesitated for a moment, noting that the blueprint was the foundation of his family's rise, but eventually agreed to go through with it. Meanwhile, Lin Fong was thinking things through carefully. He knew that his necromancer abilities could not be exposed. However, if it was just a speed run with a supervising teacher, he figured he could hide most of it without too much trouble. More importantly, the Lamp of Nature was simply too valuable to pass up. Curious about the title? Leave a comment asking for the name, and I'll make sure to reply and pin it for everyone. For what he planned to do next, it was a perfect fit, one that would greatly accelerate his progress. With that thought in mind, his decision was already made. Lin Fong finally nodded and said, "I accept." The other guy immediately burst out laughing, declaring that this was perfect. He added that with a teacher supervising, Lin Fong would be exposed in no time. Soon after, they entered the level 10 dungeon, Gloom Forest, through the portal. As they stepped inside, the supervising teacher turned to Lin Fong and asked how he had managed to clear the dungeon earlier. Lin Fong calmly replied that he would simply show his strength. As he spoke, a swirling green aura began spreading from his hands. He then called out for his farmhands to come forth. In the next instant, numerous figures appeared behind him. They were all summons, and the scene was undeniably shocking. The teacher was stunned. The summoning speed was incredibly fast, and the quality of the summoned troops looked extremely high. From the teacher's perspective, this was a perfect opportunity to observe exactly how Lin Fong had managed to solo clear the dungeon. Even he couldn't help feeling excited as the dense green aura filled the surroundings and plant-based. Summons continued forming one after another. Then, Lin Fong gave a simple command, telling them to attack with full force. Almost immediately, monsters began rushing toward them. The plant summons surged forward and unleashed their power, crushing the incoming wolves one after another. Green explosions erupted everywhere as the monsters were completely wiped out. The scale of destruction was overwhelming, yet it conveniently helped Lin Fong keep his true secrets hidden. The summons didn't stop there. They continued advancing, unleashing even more magic and leaving no monsters alive in their wake. Seeing this, the teacher couldn't hide his shock. He realized that it had taken less than a minute to completely wipe out a Cobalt patrol squad of the same level. The power on display was terrifying. He couldn't help wondering whether this was the result of a special class. Lin Fong then calmly reported that the Cobalt patrol squad had been cleared and that they were moving on to the boss room. As they advanced deeper, a dark aura began spreading through the forest. From within it, an even more sinister presence emerged, roaring as it appeared. Lin Fong remained calm and gave another order, telling Xie to raise the shield and advance while the others followed closely behind. He added that if any kobolds attempted to flank them, they were to strike without mercy. Once again, green energy surged forward in powerful waves, repeatedly obliterating the monsters in their path. When the boss monster finally charged in with a massive attack, the summons braced themselves. Since they were formed from aura, the damage they took was minimal. They immediately counterattacked. The combined strike sent the monster flying backward, crashing into the surroundings and filling the area with debris, smoke, and chaos. The teacher was completely shaken. Inside his mind, he felt that someone with this level of combat potential absolutely had to be reported to the principal immediately. Not even a single second could be wasted. The boss monster lay smashed into the ground as green aura continued to surge around Lin Fong. Slowly, the aura began to fade, but the monster remained motionless. The dungeon was clearly about to enter the reward phase. Yet, The teacher was still struggling to process what he had just witnessed. Lin Fong calmly asked, "Have I proven myself now?" The teacher answered without hesitation, saying that there was no doubt about it and that Lin Fong had more than proven himself. After that, they began heading back. As they walked, the teacher noticed that Lin Fong was not following him out of the dungeon and asked whether he was leaving. Lin Fong replied that having the teacher verify things was already enough. He added that the scenery inside the dungeon was actually quite nice, and that he wanted to look around a bit more. The teacher nodded, waved, and said that he would head out first. He reminded Lin Fong that the dungeon would reset half an hour after being cleared and told him to keep an eye on the time. As soon as the teacher disappeared through the portal, Lin Fong turned and walked straight toward the fallen boss. He thought about how his level hadn't been high enough earlier, then decided to try again. Dark energy gathered as he activated his ability once more. With a firm command, he ordered the monster to rise. From the shadows, the same boss slowly stood back up, now reborn under his control. Lin Fong had gained a new and extremely powerful summon. Soon after, Lin Fong exited the dungeon. At the entrance, the students who had been doubting him earlier stared in shock. One of them exclaimed that the fierce guy was finally out. Another nervously admitted that he had mocked Lin Fong before and wondered whether Lin Fong might hold a grudge. Someone else quickly suggested that they all leave together. None of them wanted to stay any longer. The last thing they wanted was to provoke someone like him. The teacher then stepped forward and officially announced that, in the name of Extraordinary Academy, Lin Fong had proven himself. He handed over the rewards and compensation that rightfully belonged to him. As Lin Fong accepted the bag and the blueprint, a faintly smug expression appeared on his face. He wanted everyone watching to understand one thing clearly: he was not someone they should mess with. Inside, he felt genuinely satisfied. Vera then explained to him that after the administrator came out to testify, the guy who had challenged him realized he was in the wrong, dropped the items, and ran off without another word. Lin Fong glanced at the rewards and immediately focused on what mattered most to him. He cheerfully remarked that, with fertilizer secured, a full harvest was guaranteed. Before leaving, the teacher added that Lin Fong might also want a recording stone containing footage of his performance inside the dungeon. A loud, heavy impact echoed as someone threw a powerful punch straight into a punching bag. The scene shifted to Sunwell Academy, inside Haru's room. Haru was clearly in a terrible mood. As he continued striking the bag, he kept thinking about Lin Fong, calling him a lowly farmer who had humiliated him again and again. He realized that brute force wouldn't work, and academy rules couldn't touch Lin Fong either. No matter how he thought about it, neither path would solve the problem. After thinking hard for a long while, an idea finally struck him. He suddenly remembered that Lin Fong was relying entirely on his nature magic and summons to show off. With that thought in mind, he immediately ordered a letter to be sent to the front lines, to his uncle, the Count. As the letter was taken away, Haru added another instruction: tell the messenger to have the Nature Department mentors currently rotating on the battlefield return to the academy as soon as possible. The person delivering the letter hesitated and asked if Haru was planning to use the Nature Department mentors to suppress Lin Fong. Haru answered without hesitation, saying that was exactly the plan. He reasoned that those old mentors valued purity and the strict rules of nature magic above everything else. If they were the ones dealing with Lin Fong, he wanted to see whether Lin Fong could still act so arrogantly. At the same time, back at Extraordinary Academy, the scene shifted to Vera's room. She was repeatedly watching the dungeon recording, unable to look away. As she studied it, she muttered to herself that Lin Fong was simply a monster. In her eyes, his understanding of nature's power had already become instinctual, something far beyond normal comprehension. She briefly considered waiting until tomorrow, but immediately rejected the idea. Instead, she decided to write a letter right away to notify those same old mentors to return as soon as possible. She felt they couldn't afford to waste any more time. The worst possible outcome would be losing Lin Fong to another faction, and she was determined to keep him on their side. Without hesitation, she sent the letter off, watching as it flew away into the distance. As she looked up at the sky, admiring the drifting clouds, a faint smile appeared on her face. She calmly thought that if those old geezers didn't hurry back, their lifetime achievement honors were about to slip right through their fingers. For several days in a row, Lin Fong lived inside the dungeon. He had to face a lot of beasts, but it was nothing to him. He could easily deal with them. Whenever a beast went down, Lin Fong would stand beside it, analyzing the surroundings as the smoke slowly subsided. Then, suddenly, notifications started appearing. Clear time. 10 minutes 28 seconds clear time. 10 minutes 29 seconds clear time. 10 minutes 30 seconds. He kept beating his own records. When he came out, the people outside started commenting. One guy said he solo cleared again and was still maintaining that speed, treating the dungeon like his own backyard. Another guy shook his head, saying he was at it again and wondering just how many runs this is today. Someone else says he didn't count and is too lazy to count, adding that this guy is just crazy. Let's scatter, another added. This is boring. Watching him grind dungeons isn't nearly as entertaining as watching others struggle. Ignoring the chatter, Lin Fong walked forward, displaying his box of items. I'm here to exchange these for fertilizer. Brother Chin looked at him and smiled. Student Lin Fong, your accumulated credits are already enough to apply for a promotion. Staying in the lower academy has little meaning for you now. I suggest you apply for promotion to the upper academy. Lin Fong thought about it. Promote to the upper academy? Chin explained, the Extraordinary Academy is divided into 2 tiers. The lower academy, like our current Storm Academy, cultivates basic talent. But Sunhee Academy, the upper academy, is where the elites from all the lower branches gather. Once you enter Sunhee Academy, the rewards available for exchange, both in quality and variety, are far beyond what the lower academy can offer. That is the place where a genius like you should go. Lin Fong turned the words over in his mind. Sunhee Academy, the upper academy. After thinking it through, he nodded. I understand. Thank you, Brother Chin. Later, Lin Fong walked into the academy mission hall. I'm here to apply for promotion to Sunhee Academy. The receptionist looked up professionally. Name, department, and credit voucher, please. Lin Fong presented his card. His status appeared on the screen. Current credits, 30,135. The crowd gathered nearby was stunned. Did I see that right? One student whispered. He actually has 30,000 credits? If I remember correctly, another guy said. Lin Fong is that big shot who crazily ground through Gloom Forest. Just how many times did he have to run that dungeon to get this many credits? Someone else wondered aloud. The receptionist nodded, impressed. Credits. Verified. She handed Lin Fong a promotion mission scroll. After completing this task and passing the review, you will officially become a member of Sunhee Academy. Lin Fong asked the most important question on his mind. After I promote, will I be able to exchange for gold-grade supplies? Yes, the receptionist confirmed. Right now, since you are affiliated with Storm Academy, you are limited to bronze and silver-grade supplies. After promotion, you will be able to exchange for gold and even platinum-grade rare supplies. Many thanks, Lin Fong said. He turned and walked away, ignoring the stares following him. As he left, he muttered to himself, I'm just going to the defensive line area outside the city to look for something. The location is very close to my land, so it shouldn't be difficult. But before that, I have to get something first. Later, as he walked through the academy grounds, a senior student stopped him. Although the Lamp of Nature is only silver grade, its effects are not inferior to gold grade items at all, the senior warned. Maintain it properly, Lin Fong, and be extremely careful not to let it be tainted by necrotic energy. Of course I will, Lin Fong replied dutifully. Thank you, senior. After the senior left, Lin Fong looked around to ensure he was alone, then moved forward. He said the Lamp of Nature cannot be tainted by necrotic energy, he thought. But I don't know why. I have a strong urge to try it. Curiosity winning out, he activated his power and summoned his necrotic beings, channeling their energy into the lamp. Immediately, the lamp transformed. Lin Fong realized it had shifted directly from a nature-type item into an undead-type one. As he continued experimenting, a large amount of dark aura and energy spread outward. He sat there, observing it carefully. After some time passed, he sighed in relief. Fortunately, this thing is sentient. He realized that by channeling nature-type energy back into it, he could revert it to the Lamp of Nature. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to explain this to anyone. Later, at his farm outside the city, Lin Fong brought the lamp to the fields and placed it above the crops. Almost instantly, the plants began to surge in growth. The power of the Lamp of Nature is truly terrifying, he thought. Even on its first use, it can make crops grow this rapidly. There will only be more items like this at the Extraordinary Academy. It seems I must complete the Upper Academy promotion mission quickly. He headed out, leaving his summoned beings busy with their work. Location, periphery of the abandoned watchtower. This is the mission location, Lin Fong thought, scanning the area. As a search mission, the visibility is low, so it's best to be cautious. He noticed the air felt strangely fresh, implying someone had been here not long ago. Looking at the ground, he saw quite a few footprints. While analyzing the tracks, he wondered who would come to a desolate place like this. Suddenly, He heard voices and looked up. There were several people nearby. One of them was urging the others to hurry. The young master ordered us to take the item before Lin Fong arrives. We have to make his mission fail. Found it. Another one laughed. Keep your voice down, a third guy hissed. That guy named Lin Fong could arrive at any time. The other one scoffed. There's nothing to be afraid of. When the time comes, we'll just use fire-type magic to burn the thing. As he spoke, he tossed a book into the air. Once the item is destroyed, Lin Fong's mission won't be completed either. However, the book didn't fall back down. It flew straight into Lin Fong's hand. Lin Fong stepped out from the shadows, holding the book calmly. In that case, I should thank you. The group was instantly terrified, clearly not expecting this outcome. One of them cursed and smacked the guy next to him. It's all your fault. Snatch it back immediately. Both of them gathered aura in their hands and rushed straight at Lin Fong. Lin Fong responded instantly, gathering green aura of his own. In a split second, spikes and vines burst out of the ground, moving at incredible speed. They wrapped around the attackers, binding them tightly before they could land a hit. The moment they were restrained, the vines dragged them right in front of Lin Fong. Are you going to give me an explanation? Lin Fong asked, laughing. He knew that once they were bound like this, there was nothing they could do. Later, at dusk outside the city farm, Lin Fong sat and thought. Haru again, he realized. If this continues, I'll be exposed sooner or later. I need to think of a solution. At that moment, something caught his eye. One of his necrotic summons was holding a red flag and tinkering with it, looking strangely focused. Many of the other summons were also nearby, working as hard as they could in the fields. Lin Fong watched them for a moment, then finally smiled. Fully automated. This is actually awesome. Meanwhile, in Haru's room, one of his men stood nervously, reporting the news. We sent people to search the watchtower. We didn't find the two of them, but traces left by our men appeared at the scene. There's a high probability they're already done for. Hearing this, Haru became furious. He punched the wall with all his strength. Trash. You're all trash, he yelled. You can't even handle such a small matter. Why do I even keep you around? Why do I pay you if you're so useless? His anger was directed entirely at one person. Lin Fong actually dared to take down my people? He turned to his subordinate with cold eyes. Contact the people of Shadow Eclipse. Offer the highest price. I want to buy Lin Fong's life. Haru glared out the window. It must have been Lin Fong who took Tuka. And now, it's time for him to pay. At the Academy Mission Hall, a voice boomed over the speakers. Congratulations to student Lin Fong on officially becoming a member of Sunhei Academy. We hope you will always walk on the path of seeking truth. The receptionist handed over Lin Fong's new uniform and a new student nameplate. After receiving everything, Lin Fong smiled. After this promotion, I can grind even more credits and earn more planting supplies. He didn't waste any time. He went straight to the entrance of the level 10 dungeon Gloom Forest. He handed over his nameplate confidently. I would like to apply for a solo entry into the dungeon. The guy standing there shook his head. That's no longer possible. Lin Fong blinked. What's wrong? Why? It was allowed before, the guy explained, according to Academy regulations, in order to reserve enough promotion resources and opportunities for lower Academy students. Upper Academy students are prohibited from challenging level 10 and below low-level dungeons. Lin Fong was both shocked and nervous. He couldn't believe it. Why can't I grind dungeons anymore? I was planning to grind a bit more before coming back. As Lin Fong walked away looking defeated, the guy at the entrance watched him go with relief. It's good Lin Fong finally left, he thought. If he had stayed any longer, the warehouse would have been emptied by this kid. Lin Fong sighed, realizing his most efficient way to grind supplies was now gone. He stood there wondering what he should do next. Just then, someone approached him and said, "You must be the newly promoted junior brother, Lin Fong." He introduced himself as Ron, commenting that since he saw Lin Fong wandering around, he figured the new student might be having trouble finding a suitable mission. Ron added that their squad had taken on a dangerous collection mission but was short one person. Lin Fong felt that Ron's appearance was a bit too coincidental. Ron then asked if he was interested in joining, saying it was a good chance to familiarize himself with the difficulty of Upper Academy dungeons. Lin Fong thought it over. He really did need credits to exchange for supplies, and he also needed to understand just how strict Sunhei Academy actually was. He figured that if it was just a collection mission, it shouldn't be a big problem. So, he agreed. I'll join. Ron happily responded, "Great, we should head out right away. When they arrived at the dungeon entrance, there were already 2 people waiting. Ron introduced them. This is the cold-faced Juve, and that's the sour-faced Carter. Ron explained the mission parameters. Our goal is to collect moonlight grass deep in the forest. The mission requires 10 stalks. According to intelligence, there are night elves patrolling the area, so everyone should try to avoid combat and focus on gathering. Later, deep inside the Shadow Woods, they walked together until they suddenly spotted a patch of moonlight grass. "Don't fight over it," someone said. "This is our mission objective." I didn't expect the trip to go this smoothly. However, as they were carelessly collecting the grass, dust suddenly rose from the ground. Flying insect-type monsters surrounded them, attacking from behind. "Not good," Ron warned immediately. "It's a night elf patrol squad. Prepare for battle." The night elves started attacking them with sticky substances, but Ron managed to deflect the material back at them. He then ordered everyone to take their positions. "Lin Fong, use nature magic to harass them. Night elves hate nature magic." "Understood," Lin Fong replied instantly. He started using his magic, sending vines shooting all around the area. The vines quickly captured the night elves, who were completely caught off guard. They clearly hadn't expected something like this to be able to restrain them. Once several of them were bound, Lin Fong pulled them together and tied them into a tight knot. Ron and the others then attacked the remaining night elves, as well as the ones trapped in the knot. After fighting for a while, Ron suddenly shouted, "Not good! They're calling for reinforcements!" He called out to the others. "Carter, you've time to start," You've responded. "Got it," Carter acknowledged. Carter then began preparing a different type of special magic. The ground split open, causing several monsters to fall into the fissures. However, Lin Fong also ended up in danger. As the ground split unpredictably beneath him, he lost his footing and nearly fell, barely managing to grab onto a ledge. "Hey!" he called out to them in frustration. "I'm very sorry, junior brother Lin Fong," Ron apologized, though his tone suggested otherwise. "This is a skill Carter just learned. He isn't very skilled with it yet, so it accidentally affected you." Seeing Ron's attitude, and realizing the others had deliberately put him in this situation, Lin Fong asked, "You don't plan to save me, do you?" Ron laughed. "It's not that we won't save you, it's just that the junior brother who just promoted to the upper academy was too headstrong and self-willed. He went to challenge elite-level monsters alone." Ron declared with mock solemnity. "In the end, Lin Fong tragically sacrificed himself and there was nothing we could do." Lin Fong, however, made a strange face. "Aren't you worried about being exposed for murdering an academy student?" "The Sunhei Academy student nameplate has undergone special processing," Ron explained smugly. "It can record powerful, magical energy. After you die, we'll take your nameplate and use it to record the elite monster's magic as proof." Not interested in their babbling, Lin Fong asked one last question. "Is there really no other way to know what actually happened here?" "We've done this kind of thing many times," Ron said confidently. "Trust our professional standards." "I see. I understand," Lin Fong said. Then, he let go of the ledge and appeared to fall into the abyss in front of them. Since he knew he couldn't resist, he chose to jump down voluntarily to give himself a quick death, Ron commented. But then, Ron suddenly sensed something was wrong, and at the same moment Lin Fong's voice spoke from above. "Are you ready as well?" Lin Fong appeared above them instead of below, exactly where they never expected him to be. Everyone was completely shocked. "Face my legion," Lin Fong said calmly. "This is not good," Ron panicked, repeating the phrase as reality set in. At the same time, Lin Fong summoned his powerful undead minions. Now, everyone was truly panicking. They never expected this kind of situation. To them, Lin Fong was an even bigger monster than they were. Some of the undead even formed a strange, beautiful heart shape before launching their attack. "You're a necromancer?" Ron screamed in disbelief. "That's impossible. Is that your final testament?" Lin Fong asked coldly. Ron quickly tried to negotiate. "Junior brother, we can talk this out. There was never any real conflict between us. Haru arranged everything. We know we were wrong. Please, let us go." "You don't know you were wrong," Lin Fong replied. "You just know you're about to die." "Haru always believed you killed Tuka," Ron added desperately. "I can help testify against Haru." Lin Fong showed no interest at all. He stepped closer, squatted down, and calmly asked, "Who is Tuka?" At first, Ron refused to answer and looked away. "Forget it," Lin Fong said. "It doesn't matter. Bury them." A massive surge of aura erupted, and soon everyone was lying motionless on the ground. Even so, Ron used his last breath to curse Lin Fong, saying he hoped he died a horrible death. "Your good days are just beginning," Lin Fong replied. He then ordered Ron to rise, all of them resurrected as undead minions. Lin Fong reflected on the transformation, wondering if undead transformed from humanoid creatures naturally possessed higher intelligence than other creatures. He realized it might be due to the Night Elves' magic from earlier. He thought he didn't need to handle the aftermath himself, but since people had died, it was best to return and report it. With that, he prepared to leave and headed toward the portal. However, something felt wrong. Lin Fong realized he couldn't exit. Confused, he stared at the portal for a while until a notification appeared. Special item, regret of the past has taken effect. Exit cannot be opened until the dungeon is cleared. Within this dungeon, all attributes will reach 200%. Suddenly, black energy erupted all around him, and another presence emerged. Lin Fong was shocked by what he saw. Before him stood a massive creature, a gigantic horse fused with a towering humanoid figure. As Lin Fong watched the new figure preparing a massive attack, he suddenly felt that something serious was about to go down. He immediately summoned his undead, thinking it wouldn't be that hard to deal with. "Attack!" he ordered. His undead charged forward at incredible speed just as the horse-like figure prepared its weapon. However, the undead were slightly faster and struck first. They kept delivering one powerful blow after another. The horse-mounted figure struggled to fight back, and soon the horse became frightened, causing the rider to fall off. The undead immediately followed up with another flurry of attacks, continuously damaging the fallen figure. Lin Fong casually ate a banana while observing the battle. He thought that the undead this time seemed to possess more instinct, and were even capable of coordinating with each other. Still, it felt like something was missing. As the attacks kept raining down, the fallen figure couldn't believe what was happening. "Why are you able to use the power of death?" he demanded. Lin Fong watched silently at first, then smiled. "You wouldn't understand." He then gave the order, "Bury him." The undead intensified their assault, and the enemy finally collapsed. Another massive area-wide attack followed, clearing the remaining threats. A status screen appeared. "Area cleared. Progress, 50%. "It's actually a dual boss system dungeon," Lin Fong commented. He realized he had to continue deeper inside. At the Gloom Forest core area, massive weed-like mushrooms grew everywhere, even wrapping around the trees. Lin Fong enjoyed the scenery as he moved forward. But suddenly, he sensed something wrong. A huge aura erupted as a hidden area revealed itself. From within it, another figure emerged, surrounded by overwhelming aura. The figure questioned why Lin Fong had set foot in this holy land. Lin Fong responded by asking if the figure could speak human language, adding that if not, he'd just start the fight. The figure was revealed as Guardian Shivius level 18. She remained silent for a moment, her aura rising steadily until the entire area was engulfed in red energy. A status window appeared in front of Lin Fong, stating that he had entered the combat phase. It explained that the Spore Domain effect was active, causing all non-Undershadow type units to take 4 points of erosion damage every 3 seconds, with the decay effect stacking. It also noted that because Lin Fong had the stacked effect Regret of the Past, his undead units regenerated 1 mana per second. Feeling confident, Lin Fong realized what this meant. In this dungeon, the undead he summoned could maintain themselves without consuming his mana. Lin Fong laughed. Regret of the Past is truly a good thing. He summoned his undead and ordered them to crush everything. Another huge battle broke out. Later, in a different area, a man thought to himself that it was fine even if Ron and the others couldn't beat Lin Fong, because the real final boss was still waiting. He mused that, although Regret of the Past increased all attributes, its true function was actually to lock the dungeon. With that kind of boss existing, even if all attributes were increased by 200%, or even 400%, it would still be impossible to defeat it. Thinking about this, he laughed to himself, feeling delighted. Just imagining Lin Fong's demise brought him joy. Back on Lin Fong's side, a massive explosion had just occurred. Smoke filled the area as one of the undead walked out, dragging the defeated enemy along. Lin Fong calmly ate another banana while watching the enemy being pulled toward him. The enemy was unable to speak, completely shocked and stunned. She finally managed to ask why Hong had betrayed them. Hong said nothing. Because of the self-edited control, he didn't even know if she was talking to him. She then angrily accused him of destroying her hatchery and vowed revenge. But before she could finish, she was knocked unconscious. Another explosion erupted as an overwhelming surge of power spread out. A status window appeared, announcing that the Gloom Forest dungeon had been cleared. The clear time was 2 hours and 17 minutes, setting a new record. The evaluation was A, and reward calculation began. Lin Fong ate yet another banana and thought, not bad at all. He felt that he had grown stronger. Soon, a huge egg-like object appeared in front of him. Lin Fong was confused and wondered what it was. A notification then appeared, identifying it as the embryo of the Chthonic demon, a mythical-grade item in an inactive state. The description explained that it was a life seed left behind after the fall of an ancient chthonic demon, requiring specific conditions to hatch. Its current status was dormant, with a strong death aura detected and an affinity of 30%. As Lin Fong examined it closely, he thought about this black egg hatchery and wondered what it really was. He used his storage ring to store it away entirely. After that, an exit opened, allowing him to leave immediately. However, before leaving, Lin Fong looked around one last time at the Lady Demon's body. He thought that converting a level 18 boss into an undead would consume a lot of power, but once converted, it should be at least on the same level as Shia. With that thought, he gave the command, "Arise." Soon, the Lady Demon rose and became part of his undead legion. She declared, "I am the Death Executioner." After hearing this, Lin Fong was quite shocked. "It can actually speak?" he asked. "Can you talk?" She responded again, "I am the Death Executioner." Lin Fong sighed. Yeah, I know that already." He tried to clarify what he meant, but she once again repeated, "I am the Death Executioner." Lin Fong went quiet for a moment, completely confused. Then she repeated the same words yet again. "I am the Death Executioner." Lin Fong finally gave up. "Forget it. Stop talking. I don't want to hear anything else." Later, outside the Gloom Forest dungeon entrance, Lin Fong stepped out of the portal. Guards and staff members were already gathered there. One of them was extremely shocked. "This is impossible." Another asked how could Lin Fong solo clear Gloom Forest. Someone else added, "This is a dungeon where even a 5-man squad often wipes." Another staff member stepped forward and asked Lin Fong why he came out alone and where students Ron, Carter, and Yuv were. Lin Fong explained, "We encountered a massive night elf attack while gathering moonlight grass and unfortunately got separated. I barely managed to escape deeper into the dungeon, accidentally triggered the boss fight, and narrowly survived to clear it and come out. As for the 3 of them, it doesn't look good." The staff members discussed among themselves and concluded that his story matched the magical power characteristics of night elves. One of them clenched his fists in frustration and asked Lin Fong if he encountered any unexpected situations after entering the dungeon. Lin Fong replied, "After entering, I gained an effect called Regret of the Past." The staff member was shocked and immediately asked if Lin Fong had made any enemies recently. Nearby, another person at the dungeon entrance watched in disbelief, thinking, "This is impossible. How could Lin Fong solo clear the dungeon boss? That's something no single person should be able to achieve." Lin Fong noticed him from afar and tried to stay out of sight, but his height ended up giving him away anyway. Lin Fong then said, "As for enemies, I don't really know since I just got promoted to Suni Academy." The staff member acknowledged this and said, "We will investigate the matter carefully and ensure justice for you." Lin Fong bowed slightly. "Thank you, Mentor. I'm counting on you to handle this matter." Meanwhile, the other guy still couldn't believe what just happened. As Lin Fong turned to leave, he quietly thought about how he was going to send his undead after the people who tried to take him down. After taking a look around, Lin Fong thought to himself that the embryo was fine outside the dungeon just now. But after returning to the farm, it had suddenly become restless. He recalled what Shivia said before dying and wondered if this embryo was really placed in the dungeon, intentionally, by someone to be nurtured. He noticed that the embryo could actually be influenced by both of his magical powers at the same time. Logically speaking, he thought, undead-type magic and nature magic shouldn't be able to coexist. So why is this happening? Is the embryo like me, capable of allowing 2 types of magic to coexist within its body? But then he reminded himself that he was human. While this embryo clearly looked like something created by the demon clan, he concluded that there was only one way to find out. He changed his clothes, put on a fresh set, and headed to the principal's office. After he knocked, a voice from inside told him to come in. The man inside noticed him and smiled. "Student Lin Fong, you haven't rested yet even at this late hour?" Lin Fong showed him the embryo. "It's hard to explain, Principal. Please, just take a look directly." The principal examined it carefully and asked, "Where did you find this?" Lin Fong explained it was inside the Shadow Woods dungeon. "It dropped after I killed the final boss. At first I thought it was just a normal drop item, but something felt off." The principal immediately recognized it. "This is the embryo of a chonic demon. There can be no mistake." He realized that the demon clan was actually able to bypass their detection and directly enter the dungeon to cultivate such a thing. Lin Fong repeated the term in surprise. "Chonic demon?" The principal began explaining further. "A chonic demon is one of the demon clan's units that uses humans as food. By preying on humans, they gain immense strength, and some of them can even cross space itself. Conventionally, a Type 4 blood cavern lord is capable of this. These chthonic demons that gain the power to cross space use dungeon mechanics to plant seeds or embryos. They rely on adventurers' battles, deaths, and magical fluctuations as nutrients to incubate silently. Once the embryo matures, it breaks through the dungeon and descends into reality." The principal added gravely, "This particular embryo has only just entered its growth phase. If it had remained inside the dungeon absorbing nutrients, it would have hatched within half a year at most. After hatching, it would become an extremely high-level chthonic demon. And if it caused chaos within the academy, the consequences would be unimaginable." However, the principal admitted that what puzzled him most was that this kind of embryo usually hides extremely deeply and normally won't appear unless there is a similar aura nearby. He then looked at Lin Fong. "Do you understand what I mean?" Lin Fong understood exactly what the principal meant and became quite panicked. However, the principal laughed and told him to relax. "I was only teasing you." The principal explained that Lin Fong had done a great service by handing over the embryo. Both logically and emotionally, he had no intention of doing anything to him. He added that everyone has secrets, and the academy respects that, as long as Lin Fong did not harm the academy or trample on the bottom line of humanity. The academy was willing to give geniuses space to grow. The principal then said he only needed one promise, that no matter what power Lin Fong possessed, he must remember that he is a student of Sunhei Academy and a member of the human faction. Lin Fong bowed slightly and said that he would keep it in mind. The principal patted him on the shoulder. "Good job." After that, he took out an item and explained that it was a territory banner. He said it was both a reward for handing over the embryo and an investment in Lin Fong's potential. He explained that once planted on land, it could unfold a primary territory barrier with a radius of 500 meters, and even achieve a certain degree of terrain modification. Lin Fong became visibly cheerful after seeing this. He said that such rich powers of law were exactly what his farm needed. The principal then told him that if there was nothing else, he should go back and rest, adding that he would send someone to handle the matter regarding the investigation. Lin Fong responded respectfully that he understood. Before Lin Fong left, the principal added one more thing. He mentioned that there would be a freshman exchange meeting in the academy auditorium in 3 days, and suggested Lin Fong go meet some peers. He also mentioned that a mentor from the nature department named Sue had submitted a very interesting topic before heading to the front line for duty, something about plant cultivation and hybridization. The term hybridization immediately caught Lin Fong's attention. As he thought about it, he realized that before, he had simply been gluing undead and plants together. But what if he thoroughly hybridized them? Instead, later, back at the farm, he planted the territory banner and observed the surroundings. He noted that after using the banner, the concentration of nature magic in the area was clearly rising. However, the matter of undead and hybridization still felt very difficult to deal with. Just then, he suddenly sensed something and looked around, wondering if something had happened on Shivius's side. Elsewhere, a worn-out man muttered to himself that the pressure was too much, and that he couldn't even deal with a brat who just got promoted. He thought he couldn't wait any longer. He also worried that investigators at Sunhei Academy had already found clues. If they discovered that Tuka was taken down by him, it would cause huge trouble. Later, he entered another secret room. Deep below, there was a massive demon. Standing in front of it, he performed a ritual and called out Haru's name. The demon responded, asking why Haru disturbed him when he had already said not to come unless there was something important. Haru immediately knelt and prayed, calling him the Great Gladiosa and asking for guidance. He explained that an anomaly named Lin Fong was destroying his plans and asked how he should eliminate him. The demon snorted and called Lin Fong an anomaly, saying that those who delusionally want to change fate will eventually be punished by fate. He declared that he would send someone to deal with him. Haru hurriedly thanked the Great Gladiosa and asked him to make it quick, saying he was worried otherwise. The demon suddenly became furious and attacked, roaring at Haru not to order him around like an ant. Haru was blasted backward, sent flying by the huge impact. After crashing down, Haru gritted his teeth in frustration and blamed Lin Fong for everything, saying it was all Lin Fong's fault. Later, at the freshman exchange meeting in the academy auditorium, a large crowd had gathered. Lin Fong was also present, sitting quietly. He complained internally that it was so boring and that he shouldn't have listened to the principal's nonsense. He thought that with the time spent at this party, it would have been better to research hybridization back at the farm. Even so, he admitted to himself that the food there actually tasted pretty good. Suddenly, a guy approached him and called out, "Student Lin Fong!" Lin Fong was slightly surprised that someone came to talk to him. The guy then excitedly said he heard Lin Fong solo cleared the Shadow Territory dungeon, and that it was really amazing, asking if he could get some advice. Lin Fong immediately felt that something was off. He thought that everyone around him had been avoiding him, yet this person came over on his own. Lin Fong apologized and said he didn't really want to talk about it, mentioning that 3 seniors died in the dungeon. He even pretended to tear up. The other guy quickly apologized and told Lin Fong not to be sad, saying he was sorry for bringing up painful memories and that he would ask another time. However, as he walked away, he thought to himself that this was the person Lord Gladiosa asked him to deal with, and that he didn't look like much. Meanwhile, Lin Fong silently watched him leave without saying a word. Elsewhere, Haru lay back, muttering that the Iron Lion Duke, the Nature Department mentor, and Gladiosa had all been notified. Even so, he still felt a faint uneasiness in his heart. The uneasy feeling grew stronger, and he suddenly asked, "Who is there?" A strange figure stepped forward. It was Lin Fong, accompanied by one of his undead warriors. Lin Fong calmly asked, "What number is this?" Haru replied that it was 1. Lin Fong nodded. "Correct." Then he threw a punch straight into Haru's face, saying, "I have tolerated you for a long time. This is your reward." And there was much more in his mind that he wanted to try out. Haru was thrown back hard, smashing into the ground as purple energy sparked violently around him. Lin Fong stood there as a dark flame burned in his hand. Injured, Haru lifted his head and stared at Lin Fong, anger flashing in his eyes. As he struggled to get up, his body trembled with the same purple light. Lin Fong watched him without moving. Haru pushed himself up on one arm and demanded to know how Lin Fong had gotten in. Lin Fong stepped forward with his undead floating behind him. He asked Haru if the events in the Gloom Forest dungeon were done by him. Hearing that, Haru clenched his teeth and shook with anger. Purple sparks flickered across his body as he shouted, asking how Lin Fong dared to hit him. Haru's body trembled as dark purple energy wrapped around him. His muscles bulged, veins lit with demonic light, and his fingers curled like claws. In front of him, Lin Fong stood calmly, his summoned undead glowing with the same kind of energy. Haru then bent forward, his back cracking as more energy surged out. Flames of purple rose around him, twisting like living shadows while markings spread across his skin. He raised his head and, with red glowing eyes, used his demon clan forbidden technique, flesh sacrifice. His body transformed further, ears sharpening, energy spreading and power overflowing from every limb. He stood tall in his new demonic form, surrounded by swirling flames of purple and black. Seeing that, Lin Fong narrowed his eyes. He recognized the technique immediately and asked sharply if Haru was a spy for the demon clan. Hearing Lin Fong call him demonized, Haru only laughed. He declared that he was a devout believer of Gladius. Hearing this, Lin Fong grew serious. Realizing that Haru was connected to the 7th demon king, Gladius, Haru glared fiercely. With purple flames twisting around his body, he shouted with rage, demanding how Lin Fong dared to speak his lord's name so casually. Without warning, he lunged forward, darkness wrapped around his arms as he roared, telling Lin Fong to die. But Lin Fong stood his ground, his undead floating beside him and coming forward, surrounded by swirling violet energy. As Haru charged at full speed to attack, Lin Feng's undead responded instantly. She swung her glowing scythe upward, releasing a crescent slash of bright purple light that blocked Haru's attack. But Haru didn't back down and released more demonic energy, causing the female undead's scythe to start cracking. The next second, purple fire erupted from Haru's hand and fell on the female undead's scythe, shattering it instantly. The female undead looked at her weapon, which was completely destroyed. Haru's corrosive power was extremely strong. Lin Feng watched her with a serious face. In his mind, he admitted that he had only wanted to test Haru a little, but now things had gotten bad. The female undead created and raised her huge scythe again, releasing huge amounts of necro energy to attack Haru. As that energy hit Haru, he let out a loud roar. Now blue and purple flames burst from his body as he spread his arms wide. He shouted that he had been thinking about how to deal with Linfeng, but he never expected Linfeng to walk right into his hands. Seeing Haru unleash more and more energy, Linfeng also got ready to release his energy as he made up his mind. In his thoughts, he decided that the only way now was to use Haru's distraction and finish the fight as quickly as possible. Haru, covered in blue flames, stood in front of Linfeng. Seeing that, Linfeng hid his hand behind him and used his summoning skill. The next second, several shadowy undead appeared behind Linfeng. They all had sharp ears, dark bodies, and strange glowing flames. They stood like an army at his side, making his presence even more dangerous. Seeing that, Haru was shocked. He immediately recognized that Linfeng was using undead magic. His face twisted with anger as he shouted that Linfeng really was problematic. Tears streamed down Haru's face. As he said, the Tuka's sacrifice was not wasted because they had discovered a human genius. While he was lost in thought, one of Linfeng's undead stepped forward and attacked Haru with its huge spear. It moved fast and struck, sending its glowing spear straight toward Haru. That sharp purple spear of energy pierced Haru's chest. Haru fell to the ground before he could understand anything. His body was bruised, but his eyes still burned fiercely. From the shadows ahead, Linfeng's cold voice questioned him if he was the one who killed Tuka. Haru clenched his teeth. Dark energy wrapped around his limbs as he placed a hand on his chest. His voice trembled with ritualistic intensity as he began chanting that with blood as the guide and the soul as the bridge, he welcomed the master's will to descend upon his body. Immediately, black veins pulsed across Haru's skin and his eyes glowed red. A violent surge of purple fire burst outward and a magic circle lit up beneath him, filling the room with swirling patterns. Haru told Linfeng to tremble and welcome the descent of the Demon King. He announced his name, Galadius. As he said that, a towering figure of shadow and horns appeared above him, surrounded by floating spheres and blazing violet flames. Haru knelt before him. Lowering his head, he addressed the being reverently as Lord Galadius. But before Haru could continue, Galadius punched him, asking how a mere ant dared to call his true name. Injured, Haru sat on the floor, purple flames drifting around him. He looked up with confusion and called him Lord. In front of him, Linfeng stood calmly, and behind him, all of his powerful undead appeared, their glowing forms filling the room. Haru pointed at him and asked his lord to kill him. Linfeng's mage undead came forward and raised his hand, gathering bright purple energy. He attacked the Demon King with an energy beam. Demon King Galadius was surprised to see that Linfeng was a necromancer. He immediately realized that Kui had already been defeated. He then raised his shield, which came out of the ground, to block Linfeng's mage undead's energy beam. But this made Demon King Galadius realize that his summoner was simply too weak, too frail, and because of that, his mana couldn't maintain the defensive formation. Thinking that, he raised his hand toward Haru, holding it in front of him and sucking energy from his body. Before he could understand anything, Demon King Galadius's massive claw descended from above. He screamed in panic, shouting as demon energy ripped through his body. His form twisted, cracking apart under the pressure of the demonic energy. Demon King Galadius absorbed all of his demonic energy. His single red eye glowed fiercely as tendrils of power wrapped around his frame. After Galadius absorbed everything from Haru's body and threw the weakened Haru aside, then with a deep resonant voice, Demon King Galadius declared that now he could fight Linfeng, the successor of the Necromancer, properly. Linfeng stood quietly. He looked at Demon King Galadius and thought that even if all of his undead fought together, they still wouldn't be strong enough to defeat the Demon King head-on. Charging straight in would only get them all killed. It was not a smart plan. Then he noticed Haru on the ground, who had been drained earlier and lay weak. Then he looked at the glowing magic circle in the aura shining with summoning energy. Seeing this, Linfeng's expression changed. A small smile formed and he thought of a way. Then he raised his voice and called Demon King Galadius a foolish demon clan member, saying that since the demon already knew he was a necromancer, he was surprised that the demon didn't run away. Instead, the demon actually wanted to challenge him. He said that was interesting. The purple flames around Linfeng grew brighter as he lifted his hand. With a sharp gesture, he pointed forward and commanded his undead to attack. Hearing that, Demon King Galadius said that if this was Linfeng's way of provoking him, then so be it. He created a chain made of demonic energy and swung it toward Linfeng, saying he would act as he wished. Seeing that, Lin Feng's female undead came forward and spun her staff as circles of light formed around her. A bright defensive wall flashed into existence. Lin Feng's undead mage stepped forward, summoning countless floating bubbles around his body. The bubbles shimmered and formed a protective layer, but they couldn't block Demon King Galadius's attack. They were sent flying. Demon King Galadius looked at them with disdain. He mocked them, saying they were so weak that he was beginning to doubt how Lin Feng even handled He Kui. With the second attack, Demon King Galadius completely destroyed Lin Feng's undead, shattering them instantly. After destroying Lin Feng's undead, Demon King Galadius grabbed Lin Feng and lifted him into the air, saying that before Lin Feng died, he would allow him to say his last words. Demon King Galadius called Lin Feng a pitiful successor and said he did not understand the power of the undead at all. But suddenly Lin Feng smiled. He said that it was actually Demon King Galadius who didn't understand the power of the undead. Lin Feng pointed past Demon King Galadius to where his undead servant hovered, clutching Haru's limp head. He explained that he had just noticed a crucial detail. When Demon King Galadius appeared, he drained Haru's mana but did not kill him. He also noted that the mana fueling the summoning formation had decreased significantly. Hearing this, the undead creature's eyes widened in shock. Lin Feng freed himself from the Demon King, telling him that his summoning still had limitations. As he spoke, Demon King Galadius's body started to weaken. Lin Feng, standing below, smirked slightly and told him that his guess had been right all along. Demon King Galadius roared in rage, shouting that he wouldn't let Lin Feng go, but as he spoke, his massive body erupted with energy, and pieces of his form began to scatter apart. Light burst outward as the Demon King's body cracked and dissolved into fragments, leaving only fading traces in the air. Once the chaos settled, Lin Feng was left alone, standing on the shattered ground. He lifted a hand to the back of his head and gave a relaxed smile, telling Demon King Galadius that he would be waiting. Not far away, some officers noticed the explosion and rushed toward the scene. One of them shouted in alarm, telling the others to go check what happened. Lin Feng turned his head slightly as he heard their voices. His eyes widened as he looked toward the approaching figures, the faint purple sparks around him flickering in the dark. Without a second thought, Lin Feng ran from the scene, muttering, "This was not good." By dawn, he arrived at his farm outside the city. He walked forward slowly, the sunlight falling on him. He thought to himself that his mana was almost gone, and that he had barely escaped in time. He raised his fist slightly and reflected that if he hadn't won his final gamble, he would have been finished. Thinking all that, he walked toward his room. But suddenly, a crack appeared in the barrier around his farm. Lin Feng stopped and turned his head sharply, asking who it was. Just then, a blond man smashed through the barrier and landed in front of him. When Lin Feng saw the intruder, he immediately recognized him. It was the same blond man whom Lin Feng had met at the student gathering, the one whom Demon King Galadius had sent to kill Lin Feng. The blond man slowly walked forward, a sword hanging on his back. His face looked annoyed. He told Lin Feng that he had been enjoying a mission where he was killing freely, but his lord had suddenly stopped him. Because of that, he was in a very bad mood. He pulled out his sword with a grin and asked Lin Feng if he could just stand there and let him kill him. Hearing that, Lin Feng didn't flinch. He raised his hand slightly and calmly told all his undead to come out. He waved his hand again, expecting his undead to appear, but nothing happened. His expression changed to shock. He realized his mana was completely empty from the last fight. His body was in a mana vacuum, and he couldn't summon anything right now. In his eyes, he saw the reflection of the blond man rushing at him at full speed, sword ready to strike. The blond man leaped forward like a bullet, swinging his blade toward Lin Feng as the attack exploded with force. On Lin Feng's farm, the blond attacker rushed forward with a wide swing of his weapon. Lin Feng jumped back to avoid the strike. Lin Feng narrowed his eyes. He remembered something important. He thought about how the lamp of nature could make the undead stronger. He remembered that last time, his warrior undead was holding the lamp of nature in its hand. Surrounded by bright energy, Lin Feng's expression changed. He realized that if he could get the lamp of nature, he might still have a chance to turn the fight around. But he also knew time was almost gone. He ran forward quickly, but everything was happening too fast. As he ran away, suddenly his farm's powerful green earth spirit appeared, glowing brightly in the air. Its voice shouted, telling Lin Feng to fall back. The blond man swung his weapon down with full force. Lin Feng quickly moved back, the strike cutting through the air where he had just been. The blond attacker didn't stop. He swung again, creating a bright arc of light as he slashed forward. Lin Feng stepped back fast, the blow hitting the ground instead. Both of them stood facing each other under the orange sunset. The blonde man held his blade ready while Lin Feng kept his stance light, watching carefully. But the next second, the ground behind Lin Feng cracked. A huge tree root rose up from beneath the earth, glowing in the sunset. The blonde man's eyes widened as he jumped backward. Then a massive tree root covered in green energy rose from the broken ground. The blonde man turned toward it, shocked as green light swirled around the giant body. The huge tree root attacked, smashing down on the ground and sending rocks flying everywhere. The impact threw the blonde-haired man backward as he tried to protect himself from the debris. More tree roots rose from the cracked earth. One of them slammed downward at the blonde man while others wrapped around Lin Feng. Lin Feng was shocked as the glowing tree roots lifted him into the air. Shock filled his face as he wondered what was happening. Those tree roots formed a barrier around Lin Feng. A thick wall of tree roots was created in front of the blonde man. The blonde man glared at the tree root wall and said coldly that this was just a cheap trick. Bright energy gathered around his sword as he swung it and activated mana infusion. The blonde man then swung his blade, flames curling around him. A bright slash cut through the air as he used his dazzling swordsmanship technique. He stepped forward and stabbed at the giant tree root in front of him. Pieces of rock and bark cracked off as the blade hit. His sword cut through those tree roots like butter as he dragged his sword down in a long fiery arc. His face stayed calm and focused. As he looked to the other side, he saw Lin Feng running away as fast as he could. His shadow stretched under the orange sunset while the blonde man watched him go. Watching Lin Feng run like this, the blonde man remembered something from their past in a dark hall filled with tall stone pillars. A man in black was running at that time. From behind, this blonde man was also chasing him. His expression was sharp and determined as he sprinted forward, gripping the sword on his back, ready for the chase. But before he could catch up, a towering, shadowy figure appeared behind the blonde man. It was Demon King Galadius. His voice echoed, telling the blonde man to abort the mission and stop chasing. The blonde man looked up sharply. He argued that the noble they were chasing was part of their plan, and if he didn't kill him now, the enforcement team would arrive, and he would be the one in danger. But Demon King Galadius glared down at him and asked if he was questioning his decision. The pressure of Demon King Galadius hit the blonde man instantly. The blonde man was thrown back and crashed to the ground inside the stone hall. Struggling to rise, he pressed his hand to the floor, but suddenly blue energy started glowing around his whole body. Demon King Galadius told him to follow his mark, saying it would lead him forward to find the noble and kill him. Just as Demon King Galadius said that, a glowing emblem appeared. It was a circular crest with a coiled dragon in its center, the Galadius mark. The blonde man knelt down, holding the Galadius mark in his hand. He lowered his head and said softly that he would follow his lord's order. Now in the present, remembering the mark, the blonde man took it out and walked toward the tree root wall formed in front of him. Again, golden flames started rising from his palm as he looked at the plant wall in front, asking if these plants were from that farm before. He hit the plant wall with the golden flames in his hand. A huge explosion followed, shaking the ground and scattering debris everywhere. Through the flames, he walked to the other side of the plant wall. Realizing how it worked, fire wrapped around him as he stepped forward. His eyes were sharp. He pointed at Lin Feng and called him a traitor. He rushed forward again, fire rising from his hands as he shouted that trying to run wouldn't be that easy. Lin Feng sprinted across the ground as fast as he could. From behind, the blonde man chased him with heavy, powerful steps, closing the distance with every stride. But as he got closer to Lin Feng, tree vines attacked him from all directions. The blonde man leapt into the air. His body spun and twisted, dodging all those tree vines. Lin Feng kept running away in fear, but the blonde fighter was already midair behind him, sword drawn and ready to strike. Suddenly, the blonde man jumped and with powerful force grabbed Lin Feng and yanked him downward. His body smashed helplessly onto the ground as debris floated around him. The blonde man landed on the ground with a sharp smile. He looked at Lin Feng and said coldly that it was over. Under the burning sunset, the blonde man raised his sword high above his head. His stance showed that he was ready to bring Lin Feng down with full force, ending the chase once and for all. But Lin Feng looked straight at the blonde man with a calm, confident smile and said, "It really is over." Lin Feng had already secured the lamp of nature. The glowing crystal of the lamp floated above his hand, shining with bright light as Lin Feng tried to activate it. Green energy wrapped around it. Facing Lin Feng, the blonde man held his sword up, ready to end him. However, the lamp of nature didn't activate completely. Seeing that, Lin Feng was shocked, wondering if a necromancer's mana alone wasn't enough to activate the lamp. Lin Feng froze in shock. But then he used his nature energy, deciding he didn't care anymore. and demanded the crystal light up for him. Just as he poured in his nature mana, green flames suddenly burst out, and the lamp of nature shone even brighter. Lin Feng immediately used its power to push back the blonde man. The blonde man's eyes widened in shock as the glowing light reflected on his face. Lin Feng then stood up, his body glowing softly as the lamp of nature floated in his hand. The next second, Lin Feng's whole farmland exploded with a wave of energy. The ground shook as the entire area was filled with nature energy. Green vines broke through the earth and quickly spread across the area. They wrapped around trees and buildings, moving like living snakes. The blonde man turned and saw the vines heading straight toward him. Before he could react, they wrapped around his arms and legs, holding him tightly. He glared at those green vines with anger, shouting in rage. He yelled that Lin Feng was a disgusting nature type. He struggled as the glowing vines tightened around his body. The blonde man used all his power and broke free from the vines by tearing them apart. Just as he fell to the ground, he took out his Gladius mark. Purple energy covered his whole body and soared as he activated its full power. The Gladius mark released huge amounts of demon energy, which the blonde man absorbed and released into the surroundings. The blonde man moved with lightning speed, attacking Lin Feng from all directions with his sword. Seeing him coming, Lin Feng stepped forward and used the lamp of nature, releasing huge amounts of nature energy. Using all that natural energy, Lin Feng finally summoned his undead spirit, his warrior undead, Hai Kui. The original Necromancer appeared in front of Lin Feng, but he wasn't in his purple undead form. His whole body was covered by leaves and vines as he appeared in his human form. Just as he appeared, he used nature energy to block the blonde man's multiple sword strikes. The blonde man used his demonic energy to push Hai Kui back with full power, but it was no use. On top of that, the blonde man's sword shattered completely. Hai Kui, covered in vines, stepped forward through the dust. His eyes were sharp as more green power gathered around his arms. Seeing him, the blonde man's eyes widened in shock. He recognized Lin Feng's undead and asked if Hai Kui was dead. But Hai Kui didn't say anything and just stood with green flames dancing around him, ready for the next strike. Lin Feng, surrounded by glowing green energy, looked forward with a calm face. He gave a cold order to his undead, telling it to kill the blonde man. At his command, Hai Kui, with leaf-like vines around his body, rushed forward. His arms swung out, green fire trailing behind him as he grabbed the blonde man and dragged him along. The blonde man's eyes widened in shock. He shouted, telling Hai Kui that they were allies. But before he could finish, a violent impact followed. A huge splash of blood burst across the scene. The man Hai Kui had grabbed was smashed brutally. His broken body fell to the ground, blood leaking from it as green flames burned around him. After killing the blonde man, Lin Feng fell to his knees and coughed weakly. He was completely exhausted. The next second, Lin Feng lay on the ground as the glowing green flame started to fade from his body. He looked helpless and told Hai Kui that he was done for. In the next moment, he collapsed completely, falling over with no strength left. His body hit the ground hard. The lamp of nature crystal floated nearby, completely drained of its power. Hai Kui stood beside Lin Feng, watching him with a calm expression. He let out a slow breath, seeing that Lin Feng was just unconscious. Then Hai Kui's body started to change. Purple flames wrapped around him, climbing across his skin. His green vine-like armor shifted and disappeared under the rising dark energy. His entire form transformed. Black flame-shaped markings spread across his chest and arms. Purple fire swirled around him as his muscles tightened and his eyes sharpened. He completely transformed into his undead form. After the complete transformation of Hai Kui, his body suddenly shone brightly. Then pieces of his body began to break away. In the next moment, the purple shell covering him shattered into small fragments, and the undead aura around him faded completely, leaving nothing behind. The scene then shifted to a peaceful landscape. A bright valley stretched between distant mountains covered in green fields and forests. In that green field, someone waved flags in the distance. The flags carried the symbol of a lion's head. It was a group of armored knights riding in formation, their white horses marching proudly. Behind them, a decorated royal carriage traveled along the road. Inside the carriage, 3 people sat together, one in blue clothing, one with long red hair, and another dressed in dark attire. The carriage moved steadily as sunlight shone over the land. Inside the moving carriage, the red-haired warrior sat with a serious face. His armor reflected the sunlight coming through the window. Across from him, the older man with long brown hair and a beard looked at him calmly, waiting for him to speak. But a quiet moment passed between them. The red-haired warrior lowered his eyes as if thinking about something difficult. The older man watched him closely, also not saying a word. Then the older man turned his head toward the window. The bright sky and green mountains outside caught his attention as the carriage continued forward. But suddenly, a glowing green energy appeared outside, swirling around the trees that surrounded a wooden building hidden within the forest. As it appeared, the whole carriage shook violently, shocking the people sitting inside. All three looked ahead with tense expressions. The carriage suddenly shook again as something dark hit its roof. The impact made the whole vehicle jolt. Then from the carriage, bright streaks of energy shot across the sky, rushing past the moving vehicle. The horses kept running, but the disturbance was impossible to ignore. Inside, the red-haired man noticed it first. His eyes widened in surprise, and he leaned forward sharply. A knight stopped the carriage and bowed beside the window. The red-haired man and a blue-haired girl looked out from inside, watching him closely. After hearing what that knight said, the red-haired man sat back on the seat. His expression was calm but thoughtful as he stared ahead, thinking about what had just happened. At dawn, golden sunlight washed over Linfeng's farmland. Thick green vines erupted from the earth, tearing through the property and leaving nothing but scattered debris and settling dust in their wake. Suddenly, streaks of white light blitzed into the area. It was the same group from the carriage, touching down at the edge of the ruined fields. A man with long brown hair stepped forward, his silhouette framed by a lingering, radiant glow. His expression was dead serious as he surveyed the devastation. "Pure nature magic," he murmured in awe. Behind him, the others fanned out to inspect the massive vines, crouching beside the thickest stalks. "It's hard to believe an expert this powerful was hiding out in a remote place like this," one of his men remarked. Another chuckled. "I'd gladly step down and let them be the dean of the nature department if I could wield magic this pure." A younger member of the group studied the cratered ground and the eerie floating stones. "Looks like a clash with the demon clan," he pointed out. Just then, the brown-haired man spotted Linfeng sprawled out unconscious in the dirt, the lamp of nature lying right beside him. He hurried over and looked down at the boy. Recognizing the artifact instantly, the man's eyes widened in realization. He must have suffered backlash from forcefully activating the lamp of nature, he concluded. Glowing green energy flared around his hands as he dropped to one knee beside the unconscious Linfeng. Pressing both palms to Linfeng's chest, he channeled soft, stabilizing nature magic into the boy's body. Meanwhile, deep within Linfeng's consciousness, everything was shifting. He found himself floating in a brilliant blue void, awash in swirls of purple and blue energy. Chains of sheer power wrapped tightly around him. He looked around in shock, wondering to himself, "Is this place inside my own body?" The energy drifted gently around him, radiating a warm, calm, and welcoming sensation. He instinctively knew this power belonged to him. Looking around, he watched purple flames dance along his arms. "This must be my own power," he whispered. He reached out, and as his fingers brushed the drifting aura, purple energy coiled playfully around them. Soon, he was completely enveloped in those same purple and pink flames. His eyes sharpened as he analyzed the aura. "Is this necromancer power?" he wondered aloud. Without warning, the swirling force violently exploded outward, sending him tumbling head over heels through the kaleidoscope of light and color. The flames twisted violently around him. Gritting his teeth, he finally managed to steady himself. "What's going on?" he asked, his face pale with confusion. More purple flames whipped around him, binding his torso and arms tightly. Panic set in as a chilling realization hit him. The necromancer power wasn't under his control at all. Suddenly, in the distance, a pulsing, purple, heart-shaped core materialized, floating high above a sea of clouds. Linfeng stared up at it from below while purple flames and energy churned violently through the mist. Within the glowing fog, a small, shadowy creature began to take shape. A moment later, the clouds parted and Hiki, the original necromancer now in human form, stepped out, wreathed in ominous pink and black energy. He hovered above Linfeng, who stared up in absolute shock. "Hiki!" Linfeng shouted. "Why are you alive? Didn't you die?" Hiki's expression remained perfectly calm. "I really did die," he answered, before a sinister smile crept across his face as the purple flames engulfed him. "But thanks to you, I was able to understand the true meaning of death." Hiki stretched out his hand, dark energy curling wickedly around his arm and fingers. He lunged forward, ready to strike. Lin Feng gasped as a massive claw-like hand materialized from the swirling purple and black energy and shot toward him. The restrictive purple flames tightened around Lin Feng, leaving him paralyzed. "This is bad," Lin Feng yelled, sweat rolling down his face as he fought against his bindings. "I can't break free." Hickey rushed him with a crazed, manic smile, his arms practically dripping with dark fire. He let out a sharp laugh. "Once I kill you, your body becomes mine," he taunted, leaning in close so he was speaking directly into Lin Feng's face. "When that time comes, I will be reborn." But just at that moment, in the physical world, the brown-haired man pumped a fresh surge of nature energy into Lin Feng's body. Inside the mindscape, a blinding white impact slammed into Hickey from behind, knocking his body forward. His face twisted in shock as he whipped around. Lin Feng stared upward, just as stunned by the unexpected rescue. Another burst of white light blasted down, rattling the entire purple-flamed void. Hickey jerked violently as the shockwave hit near him. A second blast followed immediately, slicing cleanly through the swirling colors. Then a massive glowing tree root shot out from the white clouds and slammed directly into Hickey, his face contorting in pain as the heavy blow connected. Lin Feng drifted behind him, still restrained by the swirling energy. Hickey crashed hard into the ground, purple and black flames roaring wildly around him, dragging Lin Feng down with him. More blinding strikes rained from above, forcing Hickey to brace himself. He let out a frustrated growl, muttering that the attack was terrifying. Realizing the source of the magic, Hickey's anger boiled over. He gritted his teeth and cursed under his breath. Nature-type power. Enraged, Hickey slammed Lin Feng into the ground with everything he had. Lin Feng hit the dirt hard as purple fire scattered around him. Hickey raised his hand for a killing blow, but before he could strike, Lin Feng's dormant nature energy erupted, flooding the entire surrounding area. Lin Feng's consciousness was suddenly pulled through a swirling vortex of bright colors. One side glowing a toxic purple, the other a vibrant green. He spun helplessly in midair, desperate to regain his balance, until he abruptly slammed into an invisible wall separating the two domains. Everything faded to pitch black for a moment. Then a faint glow, like a sunset bleeding through a dense forest, slowly pulled him back to reality. Lin Feng fluttered his eyes open. He was lying on a makeshift medical bed with glowing patches stuck to his chest. Wiping cold sweat from his face, he gasped for air. That was way too close, he thought. His undead mana had dried up earlier, stripping Hickey of the strength needed to keep fighting, but he never could have guessed the Necromancer was literally hiding inside that very power. It was a ticking time bomb. As he processed the close call, he noticed the brown-haired man standing over him. "I've checked your condition," the man said calmly. "You've severely overdrawn your mana and suffered some light internal shock, but nothing serious." Nearby, one of his subordinates reported back from a perimeter sweep. "The aura we sensed earlier definitely belonged to a high-level demon clan member, someone at least above level 20. Noticing movement, the scout tapped his superior. "Sir, he's awake." Lin Feng groaned in confusion as he slowly pushed himself up. Seeing him stir, the brown-haired man offered a reassuring nod. The treatment went very well. An officer in a sharp suit helped Lin Feng sit up and cut right to the chase. "Were you the one who killed the demon clan member? How are you feeling now?" Lin Feng didn't answer immediately. He noticed more men gathering around, eyeing him closely. Looking down, his expression hardened. "I have no idea who these people are," he reasoned. "Better to keep my mouth shut." Sensing his hesitation, the brown-haired man spoke up. "There's no need to be nervous," he said calmly, studying the boy. "His nature magic is incredibly pure," the man thought to himself. Could he be the child of nature that Vera mentioned? Just then, Lin Feng's student ID card slipped out of his pocket. The man glanced at it. "Based on your clothes and ID, you must be from Sunhee Academy." He then pulled out his own credentials to formally introduce himself. "We are mentors from the Extraordinary Academy's Nature Department." Relieved, Lin Feng pushed himself to his feet and bowed politely. "I'm Lin Feng from Sunhee Academy. It's an honor to meet you, mentors." Just then, another group arrived on the scene. A man with flowing red hair approached, flanked by a squad of heavily armored soldiers. They all fell silent, taking in the absolute destruction of the farm. Stepping forward, the red-haired man locked eyes with the brown-haired leader and instantly recognized him. "Master Seymour? What happened here?" he asked. Master Seymour calmly explained the situation. There was a demon clan invasion. Fortunately, the demon was defeated, thanks to Lin Feng here, from Sunhee Academy. The red-haired man blinked in surprise, a drop of nervous sweat rolling down his cheek. He walked over to Lin Feng and clapped a heavy hand on the boy's shoulder. "It seems true heroes really do arise from the youth," he said with a proud smile. But as he glanced past the boy to look at something off to the side, his expression completely dropped. His eyes widened in absolute shock. The red-haired man stared at the scattered rocks, and that blonde man's sword on the ground. His eyes widened as he recognized who the killer was. Master Seymour gently placed a hand on his shoulder and asked what was wrong. The red-haired man lowered his head slightly. Seymour called him Lord Count and asked again if he had discovered something. After a moment of silence, the red-haired man finally spoke. He said he was thinking about how hard they had fought on the front lines to resist the Demon Clan. Yet, even with all their effort, a Demon Clan member had still managed to sneak into the rear. He said it was truly shameful. Master Seymour looked at him calmly and said that the matter had already been resolved and they should return to the academy. But before leaving, Seymour looked back and told one of his men, Yolan, to bring Lin Feng along as well. They needed the principal to give an explanation.
And that's where we wrap up today's video. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss out the next video. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, leave your comment down below. Also, don't forget to drop a like to support our channel and subscribe to stay updates everything that comes out. See you next time. Bye bye and big hug to everyone. I am out.